Chapter 588. Yi Hua and his two wives instantly arrived at the scene. Seeing Yan crying in Ali's arms, the parents' hearts were about to break. "Mom!" Sensing that his mother had arrived, Yi Yan immediately ran over. Qingya hugged her son into her embrace, and her beautiful eyes were already red. Looking at her son's dirty little face, Qingya felt extremely heartache. "Yan, be good, mother is here." Yan is so useless, unable to protect Big Sister. Big Sister was bullied by bad uncle. Yi Yan cried out bitterly. Donghuang Baiji carried her daughter into her embrace and wiped off the dust on her daughter's face. "Ali, are you injured anywhere?" Hearing her mother's gentle and caring voice, Donghuang Li also started crying loudly. "Woo-woo. Ali is so useless, I can't even protect my little brother." The big sister blamed herself for not protecting the little brother properly, and the little brother blamed himself for not protecting the big sister properly. These two little fellows are really... Yi Hua was furious. His son and daughter were bullied. As a father, how could he let this go? "Do you think that ants like you can bully the child of my supreme sovereign?" "Daddy, I'm sorry." Donghuang Li looked at her father and said while crying. Yi Yan also shouted out, "Daddy, Yan has disappointed you." Yi Hua rubbed onto the heads of the two little fellows and said gravely, "Both of you are good children, it is this world that is too sinister." Qingya and Donghuang Baiji coldly looked at the thousands of people who were fighting not far away from them. They wished that they could kill every single one of them. Chen Xuanzong's expression stiffened. That girl is actually the Empress's child, and the boy is actually Qingya's child. And that Long Outyan. Damn you, Long Outyan. Today I, the Devil Emperor Chen Xuanzong, shall expose your ugly face. Yi Hua looked towards the thousands of people who were fighting over there and stretched out his palm. The jade flute could be seen flying out from one of the people's hands, and Yi Hua held it firmly in his hand. The 1,000-man team battle stopped in an instant. Yi Hua and the two women who were not far away from him. It seemed that the parents of the two children had come. Thousands of people landed on the ground, and these people who had already killed to the point that their brains were burning with passion looked at Yi Hua and shouted out, "Hand over the jade flute, if not, we will kill your entire family." Kill his entire family? Yi Hua's face sunk. It has always been the main overlord who gets exterminated. Do you ants even have the right to say such words? Haha. Where did this pretty boy come from? His tone isn't small at all. Wanting to kill me? You'll have to ask the blade in my hand. Yi Hua lightly clenched his fist. Kacha! The jade flute was broken and fell to the ground. A berserk aura spread out, and a blood blade appeared in Yi Hua's hand. "Today, I shall be merciful. I bestow death upon you." Right after Yi Hua finished speaking, Yi Hua's figure disappeared from his original spot. Qingya covered her son's eyes, and Donghuang Baiji did the same as well. However, the two of them were very much in agreement with their husband's actions. Even if their husband didn't do it, they would have done it. Yi Hua was like a wolf that had entered into a flock of sheep. The crowd immediately let out wails, and they didn't even have the time to react before they were killed by Yi Hua. In less than half a minute, all of the 1,000 people in the group had fallen into a pool of blood. In actuality, Yi Hua could insta-kill all of them, but that wouldn't be enough. Only by imprisoning their souls in hell for all eternity would he be able to get rid of his anger. The blood blade in his hand had such an ability. Holding on to his blood blade, Yi Hua stood in the middle of the crowd like a god of slaughter, extremely terrifying. If it was in the past, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji wouldn't be able to get used to it. However, right now, they felt extremely comfortable, as if Yi Hua had done something great. Keeping the blood blade, Yi Hua slowly walked towards his wife and son. This matter won't end just like this. Just wait for the Supreme Overlord's anger. Long Outyan. A voice suddenly rang out, causing the family of 5 to stop their footsteps. Yi Hua naturally knew that it was Chen Xuanzong. Just now, he didn't kill Chen Xuanzong because he was curious about what Chen Xuanzong was planning to do. Qingya also saw Chen Xuanzong walking over, and she said doubtfully, "Chen Xuanzong." "Qingya, I am going to tell you a secret today." Chen Xuanzong felt great in his heart. "I am going to expose this despicable and shameless Long Outyan soon. He actually disguised himself as someone else. He is truly hateful." "Chen Xuanzong, just what are you planning to do?" Qingya shouted out. "Why are you still so stubborn? Those are all things that happened when you were young. Chen Xuanzong laughed loudly and said crazily, Qingya, you still don't know, right? This Yihua is Long Outyan's disguise. Don't be fooled by him again. Also, Empress, you have also been fooled by him. Long Outyan, what else do you have to say? You liar. Chen Xuanzong pointed at Yihua and shouted out coldly. This is truly satisfying. Finally, today has come. Qingya, don't be stubborn anymore. This demon emperor is your best choice. Even if you have a child now, this demon emperor wouldn't mind at all. I will treat the child as my own child. Yihua thought back to that Long Outyan from the very beginning. If it wasn't for Chen Xuanzong mentioning it, I would have probably forgotten about it. Chen Xuanzong, have you gone mad? What Long Outyan? Qingya felt that Chen Xuanzong had really gone mad. He actually thought that Yihua was Long Outyan. Dong Huang Baiji said faintly, Chen Xuanzong, seeing that you are a northerner in the past, if you leave now, I will spare your life. Chen Xuanzong was puzzled. Just what did this Long Outyan do to make them so loyal to him? They actually don't believe in me. Look carefully. He is Long Outyan. Yihua thought that Chen Xuanzong was going to do something big. He actually mistook me as Long Outyan. Just what is this person thinking? Qingya was also very angry. She shouted out coldly, Chen Xuanzong, if you continue like this, don't blame me for disregarding our past friendship. Qingya was also afraid that Yihua would misunderstand something. After all, this fellow's jealousy is not ordinary. Qingya, why don't you believe me? I love you. This Long Outyan is just lying to you. Chen Xuanzong couldn't suppress his feelings anymore and expressed his love. Enough. Chen Xuanzong, from today onwards, I have nothing to do with you. Qingya's face turned red from anger. To actually say such words in front of my own husband and son, I have lost all my face. Hearing that, Chen Xuanzong's face turned pale and he couldn't help but take a step back. Yihua was very displeased. To actually confess to my own wife in front of me. Do you think that I am transparent? Chen Xuanzong, my wife is indeed outstanding, but only an outstanding man like me can have her. As for you, you are merely an ant under the common people. You don't even have the qualifications to kneel and lick my feet. Chen Xuanzong's face suddenly turned sinister. Long Outyan. You still like to act cool. It's hard to change a person's nature. Today, I will make you reveal your true colors. Yihua laughed then asked gravely, what do you want to do? Long Outyan. I, Chen Xuanzong, want to challenge you to a duel. 6 shadow moons appeared in Chen Xuanzong's hand, and the 6 shadow moons were pointed towards Yihua. I will fulfill your wish. Chapter 589. Yihua had long wanted to get rid of this Chen Xuanzong. He actually has a crush on my wife. Now that the opportunity is here, Qingya won't say anything even if I get rid of this Chen Xuanzong. Even if she wants to say anything, I will just go crazy. Don't you know that I am the jealous king of the cultivation world? Qingya stood at the side and didn't say anything. If I say it now, Yihua will still think that I have something going on with Chen Xuanzong. This isn't a good thing. For the sake of family harmony, Qingya won't say anything. Qingya had already done her best to persuade this childhood friend of hers. Yet, he still insisted on doing things his own way. He even said that Yihua is Long Outyan. They are clearly two different people. It's not like Long Outyan hasn't seen them before. Dong Huang Baiji didn't care about Chen Xuanzong's life at all. If he didn't choose to support her back then, he wouldn't have said those words just now. Qingya and Dong Huang Baiji carried their children and sat at the side, waiting for the result. Yihua was very satisfied with Qingya's actions. As expected of my supreme overlord's woman. At crucial times, she is still thinking from my perspective. My love for her is not in vain. Take out your weapon. I, Chen Xuanzong, don't kill unarmed people. Chen Xuanzong, who was holding on to 6 shadow moons, looked quite handsome. Just that, he fell in love with a woman that he shouldn't love. Yihua took out a cigarette and lit it up, then took a deep breath and said faintly, You overestimate yourself. Do I need a weapon to kill you? A cigarette is enough. Long Outyan. Who asked you to act cool? Today, I, Chen Xuanzong, am going to kill you. Chen Xuanzong shook his hands, and the 6 shadow moons in his hands immediately flew towards Yihua. as expected of an ancient divine artifact. Yihua's lips curled up slightly. He held onto the cigarette and stabbed towards the spear that was emitting a bright light. Clang! A metallic sound rang out. The cigarette butt and the spear collided and emitted a terrifying aura. Chen Xuanzong looked at the scene in front of him dumbfoundedly. This long-out yen actually used a cigarette butt to block my ancient divine artifact. How is this possible? I have already said. I don't need a weapon to kill you. Yihua flicked the cigarette ash, then took a deep breath and breathed out a green smoke. Chen Xuanzong didn't dare to be careless. With a leap, he pulled apart the distance between them. However, a voice came from behind. What's wrong? Are you distancing yourself because you're afraid? A smell of smoke entered Chen Xuanzong's nose. Chen Xuanzong's face turned pale with fright. Although it was just a simple contact, he already knew the gap between them. Long Out Yin was so strong that he could use a cigarette butt to block the attack, and his speed was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. It seemed that he had to use his ultimate move to have a chance of winning. Full-way Empyrean Net. Chen Xuanzong yelled and stabbed the 6 moon-shaped shadows into the ground. A terrifying aura immediately filled the air, and the huge pressure caused the sky to change color. A deafening sound of thunder resounded between the heavens and the earth, as if it was the end of the world. A ferocious spiritual pressure shot out from the spearhead and into the skies. In an instant, rays of light shot out for tens of thousands of feet, and the clouds began to spin like a vortex. A huge spearhead pierced through the clouds, bringing with it the might of heaven and earth. It was as if the entire world had stopped moving. Haha! Long Out Tian. Just wait for your death. You can't escape from my 4-sided sky net. Chen Xuanzong laughed wildly, as if he could already see the scene of Yihua being stabbed to death, and then he would be able to hug the beauty. Yihua let out a light sigh. This ignorant human doesn't understand my strength at all, and yet, he dares to speak such arrogant words here. Foolish! The huge spear in the sky was golden in color, and it slowly descended with surging killing intent. The entire ground was suppressed by the spiritual pressure, and all of the towering trees were crushed. The corpses in the surroundings actually turned into blood and merged with the ground. This is simply too powerful. From a visual point of view, this scene is comparable to a sci-fi blockbuster. The speed at which the huge spear descended became faster and faster, and the ground collapsed along with it. Yihua casually took a puff of his cigarette, then exhaled it towards the huge spear. In an instant, the huge spear that was insufferably arrogant just a moment ago dissipated like a bubble, as if it had never appeared in the first place. The world returned to normal. Yihua blew away my 4-sided sky net in a single breath. Chen Xuanzong's eyeballs were about to pop out. This must be fake, right? Chen Xuanzong, compared to me, you are still a bit lacking. While speaking, Yihua even used his finger to gesture. Although it was just a simple gesture, the difference between them contained the sky net. This is impossible. Chen Xuanzong shouted out, and the 6 shadow moons in his hand attacked towards Yihua once again. Yihua once again took out the cigarette, but that was about to be completely smoked and slowly blocked it. Then he said, Qingya is mine for her entire life, and only I am able to enjoy her body. As for you, you don't even have the qualifications to dream about it. Qingya naturally heard Yihua's words, and she rolled her eyes at her husband. Men just love to use such things to show off their abilities. Chen Xuanzong was stimulated, and his hand speed became even faster. The afterimages of the spear were like afterimages, and the cigarette butt in Yihua's hand was the same as well. Bang! Yihua suddenly grabbed onto the tip of the spear, then raised his leg and kicked Chen Xuanzong. Chen Xuanzong's entire body was sent flying. This was simply a one-sided battle. Yihua only gave Chen Xuanzong enough time to smoke a single cigarette. Now that the cigarette was finished, this Chen Xuanzong should die. Yihua held onto Chen Xuanzong's weapon and slowly walked towards Chen Xuanzong. As for Chen Xuanzong, he was actually half crippled by Yihua's kick. All of his internal organs were displaced, and even his spiritual energy was scattered by the kick. Chen Xuanzong, who was lying on the ground, couldn't move at all. I didn't expect that I wouldn't even be able to withstand a single kick from my opponent. When did this Long Out Yen become so powerful? Yihua turned his head and looked towards Qingya, who was at the side, then persuaded her softly. Qingya, you know me. I have liked you since I was young, and even now, my feelings for you have never changed. Everything I do is for us to have a good future together. Qingya carried her son and slowly turned around. She didn't want to see this scene. When Chen Xuanzong saw that Qingya's back was facing him, he laughed lightly. I didn't expect that even after I transmigrated to this world, I still couldn't obtain Qingya's heart. The heavens are so unfair. Yihua lowered his head and looked towards Chen Xuanzong, then said faintly, Chen Xuanzong, if you have a next life, remember this. My woman isn't someone you can think about. Humph. I, Chen Xuanzong, won't beat around the bush. I just like your wife. This sentence indeed angered Yihua. And when Chen Xuanzong saw Yihua's expression changing, he laughed out loud. In this fucking life, my next life, and the life after that, I will always like your wife. Yihua's face turned gloomy, and the 6 shadow moons in his hand pierced towards Chen Xuanzong's heart. Chapter 590. Qingya, remember me. There is still a man who loves you in this world. Chen Xuanzong shouted out, and after he finished speaking, his face turned pale. Yihua tightly held onto the 6 shadow moons in his hand and said softly, Remember, my name is Yihua, not Long Outian. The 6 shadow moons began to crack, and cracks instantly appeared on the spear. Boom! As the 6 shadow moons exploded, Chen Xuanzong's body dissipated as well, and even his primordial spirit disappeared completely. Actually, Chen Xuanzong was similar to Xiao Yi. He was a stubborn person. Xiao Yi's stubbornness came from his strength and authority, while Chen Xuanzong's stubbornness came from his love for Qingya. If he was slightly more flexible, such a thing wouldn't have happened, and the two of them might still be alive. However, the reality was like that. Especially for Chen Xuanzong, even if he were to die, he still spoke out his thoughts without any hesitation. Yihua's face turned gloomy, and he felt extremely unhappy. Especially that last sentence of Chen Xuanzong's. He didn't put me in his eyes at all, and he even aggressively confessed to my wife. F***K. I'm in a bad mood. Yihua immediately disappeared from where he was standing. Seeing that their husband disappeared, Qingya and Donghuang Baizhi knew that Yihua was unhappy. Qingya, hand Yener to me. I will go and coax him. Donghuang Baizhi laughed bitterly. Sometimes, when Yihua is angry, he is just like a child. If you don't coax him, he will still lose his temper. Qingya let out a deep sigh, then handed her son to Donghuang Baizhi, then disappeared. Donghuang Baizhi carried the 2 little fellows back to Voidless Realm first. Tonight is truly not a good night. Yihua returned to the office in Leisure Bar, turned on the TV, and played Calabash Brothers Save Grandpa to adjust his state of mind. Just now, I nearly exploded from anger because of that Chen Xuanzong. Not long later, Qingya walked into the office. Yihua took a glance at her, then continued to watch the TV. Qingya slowly sat beside Yihua and lightly leaned against him. The two of them did not say anything and quietly watched the TV. Yihua's gloominess also dissipated quite a bit. Qingya is my woman, and she will appear in public, so it is normal for her to be liked by others. In actuality, what Yihua was angry about was that Chen Xuanzong and Qingya were childhood friends. If Chen Xuanzong was just an ordinary admirer, Yihua wouldn't be so angry. An hour later, Qingya said tenderly, It's getting late, let's go and sleep. Yihua knew that Qingya was trying to give him a way out of this embarrassing situation. Thus, he did not continue to make things difficult for Qingya. Carrying Qingya up, he walked towards the bedroom. I am going to fiercely possess her tonight. Qingya is my woman, and no one can even think of touching her. Qingya, who was being carried in Yi Futian's embrace, had a helpless expression on her face. Who asked me to get involved in this? As for Chen Xuanzong, I have already tried my best. Originally, it was just a test of the waters, but it ended up like this. No one could have expected it. Xiaofan could be considered lucky. If he did not leave, he would probably die here. His luck was not bad. However, with such a large number of casualties, the Righteous Alliance and the Peace Association would definitely know about it. As for the murderer, it was unlikely that they would be able to find him, because there were no witnesses. On the other hand, there was a Xiaofan. Could it be that 2 kids had defeated a 1,000-man team? Who would believe that? Within the Righteous Alliance, Qing Tiandi was eating egg tarts. Suddenly he paused and said, Sai, Chen Xuanzong is dead. Wang Debao was currently eating roasted pig trotters. The taste is pretty good. Sigh, we have lost another great general. Qing Tiandi swallowed down the egg tarts and said regretfully. However, his gaze did not change in the slightest. Feng Tiandi, who was at the side, said faintly, although this Chen Xuanzong is a bit weak, if we want to kill him, we still need an expert. Could it be that a reincarnator has appeared? Bai Zixin asked. Qing Tiandi shook his head. The reincarnator hasn't appeared yet, but I can sense that the reincarnator that is going to be reincarnated next should be a very powerful existence. When everyone heard this news, their expressions immediately became serious. Because this powerful existence was shouted out by Qing Tiandi, it could be seen how terrifying that existence was. Brother Qing, how powerful is that existence? Wang Debao asked gravely. Haha, I was just joking and you actually took it seriously. Come on, lighten up the atmosphere, don't be so serious. Qing Tiandi laughed, then picked up the egg tarts that were on the table and began eating. Everyone was speechless. Is there any meaning in doing this? Feng Tiandi snorted coldly, then went upstairs to rest. Wang Debao continued to grab onto the pig trotter and eat it. When Bai Zixin saw her husband's oily mouth, she couldn't help but say, sleep on the sofa tonight. Wang Debao looked at his wife who went upstairs to rest, then looked at Qing Tiandi and let out a long sigh. I can finally rest for a night. Just nice, we can attack Shabak tonight. Qing Tiandi laughed. Seems like he is a bit addicted to the game. Wang Debao spat out a piece of bone. No problem, I have already bought the equipment, I can totally start a massacre now. Let's go online first. Tonight, I will be the boss of Shabak City. Haha. Chen Xuanzong's death didn't bring any sadness to the team. Everyone was the same as usual, not serious at all. Meanwhile, in the Peace Association's headquarters, Xian Ba was reporting his work. President, should we go and kill more people? The man who was standing in front of the French window could be seen turning his head around. If Yihua saw this, he would definitely say, Little Ninth, you are here. That's right, the president of the Peace Association is Jiu Yi. There's no need to go, he is not a good person. Jiu Yi held onto his walking stick and looked at the night sky outside. I finally have strength. This is simply great. Xian Ba lowered his head and responded. If there is nothing else, then go back and rest. All right, President. After Xian Ba left, Jiu Yi poured himself a glass of wine and lightly shook the glass. Then, the 8848T phone in his pocket rang. There was a message on WeChat. They are all dead. Spread the news that it was done by Voidless Realm. Looking at the message from one of the masters, Jiu Yi immediately replied. If not for the help of these masters, I wouldn't have been able to establish the Peace Association in such a short period of time. Little Jiu. Suddenly, a voice caused Jiu Ye's entire body to tremble. A figure could be seen sitting on a chair not far away from him. Master. Jiu Yi kneeled down without even thinking. The figure stood up, then slowly walked over and revealed his face. It was actually Qing Tiandi. Using the excuse of going to the toilet, Qing Tiandi came over. Little Jiu, you have done well during this period of time. In the future, this peace association will be even more useful. I will listen to Master's arrangements. This is your reward, do your job well. After throwing a storage bag to Jiu Yi, Qing Tiandi disappeared from the room. Jiu Yi let out a breath. These masters of mine sure are generous, to be able to reward me with a storage bag. Jiu Yi opened the storage bag, and within the storage bag, there were 3 to 4 ancient godly items and all kinds of medicinal pellets. Good fellow. Chapter 591. Facts have proven that there is a way out if you follow the right person. However, Ninth Master, are you sure that you are following the right person? The next morning, Yihua slowly opened his eyes and lowered his head to look at Qing Ye, who was currently sleeping soundly in his embrace. Luckily, I am not drooling. Thinking back to the time when I was together with Qing Ye, I felt that it was rather interesting. She was always so noisy, and it made me very annoyed. However, everything is fine now. This silly woman has become much more obedient and knows how to serve me. Qing Ye let out a low moan. She is already a mother, yet she is still acting like a little girl. Yihua patted onto Qing Ye's butt, Wake up, you are still sleeping. Don't move. Let me sleep for the last 5 minutes. Qingye said tenderly, then chose a comfortable position and continued sleeping. Yihua lightly caressed Qingye's beautiful hair. I didn't make the wrong choice for these two women. My eyesight is rather sharp. 5 minutes is up. Yihua, can't you just let me sleep for a bit longer? You slept until 4 a.m. yesterday. I am tired. Qingye was unwilling and didn't want to move at all. Didn't you keep saying that you want it? My waist is still sore. I said that I don't want it. You are twisting my words. Qingye opened her beautiful eyes and pinched onto Yihua's face. Yihua pressed onto Qingye's hands and laughed lightly. But your expression is very comfortable. Go and die. I am not talking to you anymore. Qingye's face turned red from being teased by Yihua. Although they were already an old couple, when talking about this kind of in-depth topic, Qingye was still like a little girl, and her face would easily turn red. Right in front of Yihua, Qingye stood up, and that beautiful and lovely body of hers was exposed to the air. Yihua leaned against the head of the bed and admired her body. Qingye is truly beautiful. Every single piece of her skin is so exquisite, so perfect. Why didn't I realize that women have such charm in the past? I have truly wasted my life. After Qingye finished dressing up, she blew a kiss to Yihua. I am going to Voidless Realm to feed the child. Are you coming over for lunch? I will come over after I take a look at Zhu Tian. Yihua nodded his head. All right. After Qingye disappeared, Yihua got up from the bed. After washing up, he went to Qing Yutong's room. During these few days, Qing Yutong had been staying at Voidless Realm and abandoned Yi Zizi. However, Yi Zizi didn't go to school anymore, because Yihua had already achieved his goal, and there was no longer any use for Yi Zizi to go to school anymore. Your Honor, why did you come over? Yi Zizi had also woken up early in the morning. Zhu Tian was currently lying in her bosom, while Yi Zizi was playing games. How is absolute heaven? Yihua asked faintly, while grabbing onto the back of Zhu Tian's neck. Yihua lifted Zhu Tian up and observed him. Zhu Tian seemed to have recovered quite well. It's good that he didn't die. Yi Zizi pouted. It might take a long time for him to fully recover. That old woman is too ruthless. This was not because Brett was ruthless. Back then, he had wanted to die together with absolute heaven. He never thought that things would turn out like this. You can continue to hug Zhu Tian. Yihua tossed Zhu Tian back into Yi Zizi's embrace. Yi Zizi's blood and qi were able to help Zhu Tian recover. Your Honor, when are you going to give me a mission? I am very bored right now. Yi Zizi begged bitterly. This is so boring. When is this mission going to end? Yihua could also tell that Yi Zizi was bored. Don't let Yi Zizi get sick from being bored. All right, I will consider it. Haha, thank you, Your Honor. Yihua let out a light sigh, then prepared to go and see how Brett was doing. After arriving at Zhu Tian's residence, Yihua walked onto the wooden bridge. Brett was still rather obedient, and he stayed inside the residence. Yihua wondered if the three women would start fighting. After walking into the living room, Yihua saw that the three women were sitting there, and the atmosphere was a bit heavy. However, Brett's expression wasn't that cold. On the other hand, Dongfang Yuan and Guan Yanxin's expressions were cold. When the three women saw Yihua walking into the living room, they stood up and kneeled down. Greetings, Your Honor. You can get up. Yihua said faintly. Thank you, Your Honor. Yihua took a breath then asked, Is Zhu Tian fine? Hearing what His Honor said, the three women immediately let out a breath of relief. As long as Zhu Tian is fine, everything else isn't important. Brett, I'm afraid that it won't be peaceful in the near future. Since Zhu Tian isn't here, you will take his place and guard this place. Subordinate understands. Brett answered respectfully. Yihua nodded his head. The three of you get along well with each other. Since you have already caused a ruckus here and there, you should continue living your lives. Yes. Facing the words of a supreme overlord, the three women didn't dare to disobey. I will be leaving now. Goodbye, Your Honor. Yihua disappeared from the living room and returned to the living room to take a look at the two little fellows. Seeing that His Honor had left, the atmosphere became unnatural again. Brett didn't know how to talk to the three women, and Dongfang Yuan and Guan Yanxin didn't want to talk to Brett either. After all, This Brett almost killed Ju Tian, he was too vicious. Right after returning to Voidless Realm, before even entering the door, Yihua could hear Qingya and Donghuang Baiji scolding Yihua. Yihua walked into the living room and saw that the two little fellows had completely changed. The two little fellows were obediently standing in front of their mother with their heads lowered, not saying a word. When Donghuang Li and Yi Yan saw that their father had arrived, they saw their savior. "Daddy, Daddy," the two little fellows ran into Yihua's embrace, while Yihua held onto one of them with each of his hands. "To be like this so early in the morning, are you even going to let my children live?" Yihua was currently standing on the side of the children, acting as their strong backing. Donghuang Baiji snorted, then took out her phone. "Yihua, take a look at what they are doing." Donghuang Baiji opened up her TikTok and found a video. A familiar voice could be heard ringing out from the phone. "We are so pitiful, we have no parents since we were young, and we are all alone. My little brother is going to starve to death soon, we are so miserable." The corner of Yihua's mouth twitched slightly. He placed the two little fellows down, then picked up his phone and looked at the video. Just like yesterday, Ali and Yen were actually begging at the entrance of KFC. When the two little fellows saw that their father's expression had changed a bit, they immediately felt that the situation was bad. Their strong backing feels like he is going to jump ship. Donghuang Li pulled onto her little brother and ran out of the living room. Yihua waved his hand, and the two little fellows were frozen in place. "To actually say that I have no parents. How audacious. The two of you, come over here," Yihua shouted out coldly. Donghuang Li and Yi Yan were frightened to the point that their bodies trembled. Mother is indeed a bit strict, but when father is fierce, he is very scary. This time, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji did not say anything. These two children are too mischievous, they actually learned how to lie to others. And to even come up with such a ridiculous excuse. "Father, don't blame big sister, it is Yen who is hungry." Yi Yan's big eyes immediately became filled with tears. Yihua said gravely, "If you dare to cry, I will spank your butt until it becomes swollen." Yi Yan immediately stopped crying. "Father, it is all Ali's fault, you should just punish Ali. Little brother is still young, he cannot be beaten." Donghuang Li obediently stretched out her chubby little hand and prepared to receive the punishment. Chapter 592. Hearing his sister's concern, Yi Yan's big eyes were filled with tears, but he held them back, afraid that his father would flip out. "Daddy, Yen is a boy. If you want to hit someone, then hit Yen don't hit big sister." After saying that, Yen stretched out her white little hand. Looking at the wronged look on the little fellow's face, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji felt despair. Every time he makes a mistake, he would use this trick, cover up for each other, act cute and act pitiful, and then an hour later, he would forget everything he said just now, and continue doing what he was supposed to do. But seeing his daughter and son taking care of each other like this, as a parent, he felt very comfortable. Yihua took out the feather duster and immediately hit onto Ali's hands. In actuality, the feather duster wasn't heavy at all, but it gave Ali a fright. Thus, Ali shrieked loudly, seemingly as if she was in great pain. Donghuang Baiji couldn't sit still anymore. In actuality, most of the time, Donghuang Baiji would just scare Yizichin a little. But look at Yihua now, he is actually so ruthless. Donghuang Baiji hurriedly hugged onto her daughter and said coquettishly, "Yihua, what are you doing?" Meanwhile, Qingya was also afraid that Yihua would hit her son, and thus, she hugged her son into her embrace. "Put her down," Yihua shouted out angrily. "This is simply going against the heavens. How could he not teach him a good lesson today? I, the Supreme Overlord, think that your father's face is dark. He even said that he had no parents." His lungs were about to explode from anger. "Yihua, calm down a bit." Qingya felt that her husband wasn't joking with her, so she hurriedly persuaded her husband. Children, how can they not make mistakes? In the future, it will be fine as long as they are properly educated. Yihua shouted out coldly, "I will say this one last time, put the two of them down." Qingya and Donghuang Baiji didn't dare to anger their husband. When the time comes, both the old and the young will be beaten up together. Commonly known as domestic violence. The two little guys were put down by their mother and stood in front of their father with their heads lowered. "How dare you? Who am I to you? Yihua shook the feather duster in his hand and questioned. The two little fellows whispered. Daddy. You guys still know that I'm your dad. Then who is your mother? Dong Huangli and Yi Yan pointed towards their back at the same time. That pitiful look on Yi Yan's face made Dong Huangli look extremely cute. Then where did that fatherless and motherless thing come from? Do we think your parents are bad? If you think you're lacking, then scram. I don't have children like you. This is outrageous. Yihua gave a stern criticism. Aren't you spoiling them too much? To think that they can even say such disgraceful words. Hearing that their father told them to scram, Dong Huangli and Yi Yan were both stupefied. The two little fellows couldn't care about anything else anymore, and tears immediately flowed out of their eyes. After that, the two little fellows immediately kneeled onto the ground and hugged onto their father's leg. Dad, Ali knows she's wrong. Don't chase Ali away. Ali will never say such things again. Dong Huangli hated herself for saying those words. I shouldn't have made my father so angry. Yi Yan was also crying loudly as he sobbed. Daddy, Yen promises to be obedient in the future. Yen don't leave Daddy and Mommy Wu. Seeing that Yihua had taught his two wives a lesson, Yihua gave a hint to his two wives, and the two wives understood what Yihua was trying to say. Mom, don't pull Ali. If Dad doesn't forgive Ali, Ali won't get up. Yes, Yen, don't get up either. These two little fellows are quite stubborn. Yihua took a deep breath. Are we really going to chase the child away? If that's the case, wouldn't Qingya and Donghuang Baiji go crazy? Stretch out your hands. The two little fellows stretched out their hands obediently. Yihua took out the feather duster and hit the two of them. If you dare to do such a thing again in the future, you don't need to go home anymore. Dong Huangli and Yi Yan hurriedly nodded their heads, promising that they won't do such a thing again in the future. The children of the Supreme Overlord are begging in front of a KFC. If such a news were to spread out, where would they be able to put their face? Brother-in-law, you are teaching the little fellows a lesson again. Qing Yutong, who was wearing a set of purple dress, walked over leisurely. Not to mention that she was a bit charming. She was not the slightest bit inferior to her big sister Qingya. Yihua looked at his sister-in-law. It would be a lie if he said that his heart wasn't moved. Taking into consideration Qingya's thoughts, Yihua didn't touch Qing Yutong. Just that, this Qing Yutong is becoming more and more alluring, causing me to be very vexed. I'm going out for a walk. Yihua stood up and said faintly, Are you still coming back for lunch? Qingya asked. Yihua let out a light sigh. Not coming back, I will come back at night. After finished speaking, Yihua immediately left Voidless Realm. Seeing that brother-in-law had left, Qing Yutong was very puzzled. Recently, as long as I appear, brother-in-law would run away faster than anyone else. What is the meaning of this? This is really strange. Who cares about it? Qing Yutong pinched onto Yi Yan's little face. Yan, what did you do this time? You are even crying. Yi Yan immediately laid on his mother's embrace and cried bitterly. Qingya patted onto her son's shoulder and said with a light smile, The two children were beaten up by your brother-in-law. Damn, he really beat them up. To think that brother-in-law would actually be able to do it. Qing Yutong cried out in surprise. In the past, it was always thunder, not rain. Donghuang Baiji let out a light sigh. This is really a headache. After the one in my stomach comes out, with the three troublemakers causing trouble at the same time, my headache is going to become big. At this moment, an imperial guard who was kneeling outside of the house shouted out, Your Majesty! Donghuang Baiji carried her daughter and walked out of the house, then asked faintly, What happened? There was a piece of news that was spread out this morning, and the news is targeted at Voidless Realm. The imperial god said gravely. In his heart, he was thinking, why are there so many people who don't care about their lives? Is Voidless Realm something that you all can provoke? Donghuang Baiji asked puzzledly. What news? The 1,000 people that disappeared last night. They said that they were killed by people from Voidless Realm. The imperial guard said while trembling with fear. Oh, I understand, you can leave now. Yes. The imperial guard went into a daze. Could it be that it is true? Donghuang Baiji was very puzzled. I don't think that the news was leaked out last night. How did someone find out about it? This is a bit strange. Baiji, Do you want to tell Yihua about it? Qingye asked seriously. There is no need to tell him about such a small matter. We can handle it ourselves. Dong Huang Baiji didn't want to rely on her husband for everything and make herself seem like a flower vase. Qingye felt that what Dong Huang Baiji said was right. For some things, I can handle it myself. Qing Yutong, who is at the side, is also a good helper. Yihua returned to Leisure Bar and planned to go to the alleyway to buy a Chinese jianbing to eat. I wonder if she will be here today. Ever since the start of the new year, Yihua discovered that the auntie was a bit strange. In the past, she would set up a stall every day. But now, she would only come out 3 times a week. Sometimes, if I want to eat the auntie's Chinese jianbing, I have to try my luck. I am very annoyed. Walking down the stairs, Yihua saw that the blood demon was currently mopping the floor. That serious look on his face made it seem as if he was bringing disaster to the common people. Subordinate pays respect to your honor. With a plop sound, the blood demon lied down on the floor. Chapter 593. Get up. Thank you, Your Honor. Blood demon stood at the side respectfully. He slightly lowered his head, not daring to look at blood demon directly. How's business recently? Blood demon lowered his head and said, Your Honor, our business has been pretty good recently. Yihua nodded his head and touched onto the table. The table was indeed wiped clean. Not bad, continue to work hard. The blood demon was exhilarated. To actually be able to receive his honor's praise, this is even more of a sense of accomplishment than harming the common people. Thank you, Your Honor. Blood demon shouted out loudly. Blood demon felt that his entire body was filled with energy. I still have to clean up once more. To the extent that he could lick her. Yihua took out a cigarette and lit it up, then walked out of Leisure Bar. Meanwhile, as blood demon looked at his honor's back view, a look of worship appeared in his eyes. Even his honor is so graceful when he smokes. Why can't I learn it as well? I'm so stupid. After walking out of Leisure Bar, Yihua looked towards the entrance of the alleyway. The auntie is actually selling Chinese jianbing today. My luck is not bad. Give me a fruit jianbing. Remember to add an egg. Yihua said faintly while standing at the side. The aunt turned her head around and took a look at Yihua, then squeezed out a smile and said, All right. However, when Yihua turned his head around, his smile disappeared. Yihua wrinkled his brows and waited quietly. While it's hot. The middle-aged lady wrapped up the Chinese jianbing in her hand and passed it to Yihua. Yihua took a glance at the WeChat message on the window, then turned around and left. However, after walking a few steps, Yihua turned his head around and looked towards the aunt. After letting out a light sigh, Yihua walked back. When did I, the Supreme Overlord, become such a good person? When the aunt saw that Yihua had returned, she asked curiously, What's the matter? Is it not delicious? I'll make it for you again. No need. Yihua said faintly. The auntie looked at the handsome man in front of her in confusion. So many years had passed. From the beginning to now, the auntie was the witness. Why is it intermittent this year? Yihua asked. The middle-aged woman also sighed softly. Her brows revealed a look of exhaustion and worry. The middle-aged woman chuckled. It's nothing. It's just a trivial matter. You should go back and accompany your wife and child. This auntie is even better at acting than I am. It's obvious that she has a lot on her mind. Tell me, maybe I can help you. Yihua was giving enough face to the Supreme Overlord. If a Supreme Overlord were to take the initiative to help you, then no matter how big the matter is, he would be able to help you settle it. The middle-aged woman looked grateful. Thank you, but I really don't need it. Are you looking down on me? Yihua questioned coldly. This is the first time that I, the Supreme Overlord, have taken the initiative to help someone, and yet, I was actually rejected. If news of this were to spread out, where would I put my face? Seeing how Yihua was acting, the aunt laughed. Young man, I know that you are a good person, but you really can't help me with this matter. Hee. Is there anything I can't do? What a joke. Speak. If I can't help you, I'll pay double the price for the pancakes in the future. Wow, the Supreme Honorable was so generous. He was actually willing to pay double the price. The middle-aged woman was speechless. This young man was stubborn. She had experienced it before. Actually, it's that son of mine. He used to work outside, but when he came back last year, he became weird. He locked himself in his room all day long. Recently, he even joined that peace association and became a manager. Say the world is so chaotic. If something happens, what should I do? Yihua thought that it was some big matter and said indifferently, "What do you want?" "I just want my son to live a peaceful life and not fight and kill outside. But, sigh. He hasn't returned home for a month, and when I went to look for him, The middle-aged woman seemed to be in a bad mood. She felt that her son seemed to have changed into another person. As a mother, how could she possibly hope for her son to go out and fight and kill? Furthermore, he didn't even return home right now. He went to look for his son by himself, and he wasn't even willing to come out. He only asked someone to pass a message to his son, as if his appearance was making his son lose face. This was what made the middle-aged woman's heart ache. "Actually, I have a bit of experience in disciplining children. Maybe I can help you." Yihua felt that he was confident. "After all, my son has always been obedient, and I just taught him a lesson just now. But, can a child and an adult be compared? Furthermore, this is someone else's son." The middle-aged woman remained silent for a while, then compromised in the end. "Young man, I will have to trouble you then. My fees are very expensive." "Ah! After the matter is settled, the pancakes have to be free." The middle-aged woman went into a daze for a moment, then said straightforwardly, "No problem, if you really manage to convince that son of mine in the future, all of the pancakes that you eat will be free of charge when you come over." Yihua was very satisfied with the middle-aged woman's attitude. "You should have had this kind of awareness long ago. Lead the way then." The middle-aged woman closed her stall early and pushed her cart towards her home. Yihua thought that the middle-aged woman's house shouldn't be far away, but the middle-aged woman actually walked for an hour. The Supreme Overlord actually walked for an hour. "Your house is so far away. Why did you come here to set up a stall in the morning?" Yihua couldn't help but ask curiously. The middle-aged woman bit onto her lips and said in a low voice, "I am used to it. If I were to move to a new house, my son would have bought it for me, just that I feel that my previous house is still better." Yihua understood this middle-aged woman. After living in this bar, it would be a bit hard to get used to going to other places. "Where is your man?" "He left long ago." The middle-aged woman laughed bitterly. "Right after the child was born, that man ran away with a huge debt. Every day, I sell pancakes to pay off my debt, and I still have to pay for my son's school fees." Yihua answered, then took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up. Very quickly, the two of them arrived at the entrance of a small district, and the district was rather high class. The security guard opened the door, seemingly not understanding the middle-aged woman who was selling pancakes. "The houses here all start from 1 million, and yet, this middle-aged woman went to sell pancakes so early in the morning." The middle-aged woman came to the garage downstairs and opened the door. A Porsche 911 could be seen inside the garage. The middle-aged woman placed her tools at the side and said with a smile, "That rascal is at home." "Just nice," Yihua said indifferently. The middle-aged woman's house was on the top floor, and the view was very good. Of course, the house price was not cheap either. The middle-aged woman who was standing in the elevator said faintly, "I don't even know how my son got so much money, and I am afraid that he will act recklessly." "You don't have to worry too much about him. A man's ambition is to travel far and wide," Yihua said indifferently. "From my point of view, if a man were to be an obedient child, then what future would he have? He should be fighting on the battlefield and establishing his career." The middle-aged woman laughed lightly. "Could it be that you youngsters all think like this? In this current world, it is a good opportunity for a man to establish his career," Yihua said indifferently. "Actually, middle-aged woman also understands. I just hope that my son can treat me as his mother." The middle-aged woman let out a deep sigh. Yihua was able to understand. If one's own child were to look down on one's own mother, one would be able to do something like a tiger eating its own child. What is the use of keeping such a person? Looking at what happened this morning, if I don't discipline them strictly, in the future, they would be even more insatiable, and by then, they would not even put me the father in their eyes. Chapter 594. Walking out of the elevator, the middle-aged woman took out her keys and opened the door. They saw a handsome young man making a phone call inside. When he saw the two people at the door, He frowned and walked to the balcony, as if he would be disturbed. Yihua felt that this young man was truly formidable, to actually dare to show me such an expression. Even though my mother has returned, she still has a look of impatience on her face. You don't have to change your shoes. The middle-aged woman squeezed out a smile, feeling helpless. Yihua did not stand on ceremony and directly walked into the house with the auntie. Yihua took a look around the house. The decorations are not bad. Then, Yihua carefully sized up the young man on the balcony. Interesting, he is actually a dual-element mage. No wonder he is a manager in the Peace Association. The auntie poured a cup of tea for Yihua, and Yihua took over the cup of tea. Yihua assumed the posture of a big boss and sat down, while the auntie sat upright on the sofa. The auntie's attitude made Yihua feel that this isn't like a mother at all. This is more like a nanny. What is your son's name? Yihua asked faintly. Wu Li. Powerless? That was an interesting name. After Wu Li finished the call outside, he walked into the house and shouted, I've told you many times to stop setting up the stall. Why won't you listen? You're embarrassing me. As a member of the Peace Association, he was very particular about his reputation. If others knew that his mother was setting up a stall on the street in the morning, he would lose all his face. Yihua could be said to have experienced it for himself. If this was my son, I would have given him a slap right now. This kid is simply a scoundrel. He actually thought that his mother was embarrassing him. What an ingrate. There was even a moon and a star imprinted on his chest. No wonder it was so inflated. Mom, I'm used to having lunch at home. Mom will cook for you. The aunt's eyes were full of desire, hoping that her son would stay for dinner. Wu Li had an impatient look on his face as he said in a low voice, I'm not eating. And who is this? Why did you bring it home? Wu Li sized up Yihua for a bit. Yihua only looks good. There is no mark on his chest at all. He is just a rookie. The auntie didn't know how to introduce Yihua. Yihua said indifferently, Who I am is not important. What is important is that your attitude is making me very unhappy. Wu Li laughed and said disdainfully, Who are you? Do you know who you're talking to? See that? Moon class elites had 1 star. What's your attitude? I didn't expect that there would be someone who dared to act cool in front of me. And I, the Supreme Overlord, didn't intend to kill him. After all, I came here today to help Auntie, not to kill her son. I feel like I, the Supreme Overlord, am here to suffer. But this was the only time. It could be considered as repaying this Auntie. After all, she had eaten so many pancakes for so many years. It seemed that she still owed money and didn't even remember it. It could be considered as repaying her debt. Moon class elites are indeed powerful. Yihua said faintly. Hee, there's something you haven't seen before. I really don't know where you get the courage to teach me a lesson. Wu Li snorted. What an arrogant man. It must have been his mother who called him over. What was this old man thinking? He actually called an outsider to teach his son a lesson. He must be crazy. Yihua became curious. Is there anything that I have not seen before? Hee, how could you frogs at the bottom of a well have seen it before? Why don't I broaden your horizons today? Wu Li wanted to teach this man a lesson, but it seemed inappropriate to do it in front of his mother, so he chose to do it outside. Yihua stood up and said in a low voice, All right, I would like to broaden my horizons. All right. Just you wait. After finished speaking, Wu Li walked into the room and took out a few sets of clothes. Seeing her son's actions, the auntie sat down on the sofa powerlessly. There was no way for her to make her son stay. Yihua patted onto the auntie's shoulder. Don't worry, I guarantee that your son will come back tonight. Thank you so much. But you also have to pay attention to your safety. The auntie's gratitude was filled with concern. That son of mine has changed. It is possible for him to do something out of line. Yihua nodded his head and walked out of the house. Coming downstairs, Wu Li opened the garage door. Porsche 911, I reckon that you have never seen it before. Get on the car. Yihua didn't say anything and sat on the front passenger seat. Meanwhile, Wu Li started the sports car and drove out of the neighborhood. Yihua, who was on the front passenger seat, took out a cigarette and lit it up. Don't dirty my car. Wu Li shouted coldly. Yihua spat out a mouthful of smoke and said eerily, If you weren't the auntie's son, you would have been dead by now. Hee, Kill for me to see. Do you really think that no one would be able to see through your identity of having dual attributes? Yi Hua flicked away the cigarette ash and said, Zizizi. The friction between the tires and the ground let out an ear-piercing sound. Luckily, they weren't in the city. If not, they would definitely be rear-ended. Who are you? How did you know my secret? Wu Li turned his head and looked towards Yi Hua and questioned. He even had the intention to kill Yi Hua. Actually, I am just a person who often buys biscuits from your mother. I decided to lend her a hand. Yi Hua said lightly. What do you want to help her for? To teach you, this unfilial son, how to be a proper person. This sentence of Yi Hua's had quite a profound meaning. I haven't even learned how to be a proper person yet, and I am already starting to teach others. After hearing that, Wu Li laughed out wildly, as if he had heard the funniest thing in the world. Do you know what era it is now? This is an era where people take action. Do you think that you can just talk about it? Who told you that I am going to talk about it? Yi Hua looked towards Wu Li. When the latter met with Yi Hua's gaze, his eyes immediately shrunk. What kind of gaze is this? This is too scary. Just what kind of person is this? Not being able to figure out Yi Hua's strength, Wu Li planned to go to the company first. There are a lot of people there, and this man will not act recklessly. 30 minutes later, Yi Hua arrived at the Peace Association's company. After getting off the car, Yi Hua pinched his head. This sports car is not comfortable at all. The Audi A8 at home is much better. Let's go, I will bring you to experience it. Wu Li's tone changed a bit. Perhaps, he was afraid of Yi Hua. The two of them walked up the stairs, and Yi Hua discovered that there were a lot of people here. Most of the people here were stars, and there were very few moons that could be seen. Seems like all of them are newbies. My decision is still correct. If there are no newbies, how am I going to play in the future? After all, it would be a few years before he left. Some of the martial artists of the stars bowed to Wu Li, which made Wu Li very happy. See, this is the treatment of a moon-class elite, Wu Li said proudly. Do you believe that I will slap you out of here? Yi Hua said eerily. Does Yi Hua really think that he is very formidable? That's because you haven't seen anything stronger. For some reason, Wu Li felt a little afraid of this man from the moment they first met. What was going on? This was Yi Hua's first time coming to the Peace Association, and he was also preparing to size up the internal situation of the enemy. Chapter 595. Wu Li brought Yi Hua to the second floor, and a 5-star martial artist could be seen shouting out a declaration. Defeat Voidless Realm. Defeat Voidless Realm. Defeat Voidless Realm. Hearing such a declaration, Yi Hua went into a daze for a moment. What does this Peace Association mean? Are they going to attack Voidless Realm? Are you puzzled? Wu Li chuckled. Yi Hua asked faintly, why does your Peace Association want to defeat Voidless Realm? Because Voidless Realm killed over 1,000 people last night, so we want to suppress them. Wu Li said confidently, completely oblivious to the fact that Wu Li was about to leave and never return. Do you know about Voidless Realm? Yi Hua might not want to care about other people, but this auntie's son, if he can save him, then he will lose his life sooner or later. However, how did they know about what happened last night? Voidless Realm. Wasn't it the boss of the North in the past? But now, the times have changed. Those who are unable to keep up with the times will eventually be eliminated. Wu Li said lightly, and after finished speaking, he even tidied up his hair. Yi Hua sighed a bit. The ones who are unable to keep up with the times are you all. I gave you all a choice, but in the end, you all still have to step on a path of no return. Hope and despair. You all chose despair without any hesitation, making me feel bitter and hateful. Can't I just enjoy life? Wu Li, if it was someone else, I wouldn't persuade them, but you are that auntie's son, so I will give you a word of advice. Don't get involved, otherwise, your mother will die alone. Who are you trying to scare? That Voidless Realm is not even worth mentioning. Wu Li snorted coldly. The people above said that Voidless Realm is just a paper tiger, and there is no need to be afraid of them. Yi Hua wouldn't persuade the auntie a second time. Whether or not the auntie can comprehend the auntie's words would depend on himself. The two walked into a spacious classroom, and Wu Li said in a low voice, "Let me bring you to meet a strong individual. This is Xian Ba, the most outstanding youngster in our peace association, and he even became the champion of the North-South martial arts competition last year. A competition of strength. Yihua looked towards Xianba, who was on the stage. How could I not recognize him? That youngster is that youngster, and I even think highly of him. Yihua is also nurturing Xianba to be his future opponent. However, compared to the past, the current Xianba is doing quite well. Not bad. He didn't disappoint me. Wasn't there a young man named Qi Shuwen? I wonder how you are doing right now. Don't disappoint me. How is it? Do you understand? Wu Li, who was at the side, chuckled. Even he didn't understand, so how could a rookie like him understand? Xianba, who was standing on the podium and teaching, seemed to be in his element. He had a gentle smile on his face, which made everyone feel that he was very amiable. On Xianba's chest, there were 2 moons and 2 stars. Among young people, this was already very impressive. Xianba glanced at the crowd and continued his lecture. But Xianba frowned. He seemed to have seen a familiar figure when he scanned the area. Xianba looked towards the door again, and his gaze suddenly changed. That figure was simply too familiar. Back then, during the North-South martial arts tournament, that man had sat on the high platform. His aura so overwhelming that it was as if he controlled the lives of all the people in the world. Even the Empress was only a foil, and there was also that god. Why would he appear here? What was he doing here? Right now, Xianba was completely not in the mood to teach anymore, and the people who were sitting on the podium were also puzzled. Yihua naturally knew why Xianba was like this, and he didn't mind, because this was a normal reaction. How is it? You have broadened your horizons, right? Wu Li said proudly. Yihua said lightly, what do you think of your own mother? What does that have to do with you? Wu Li was immediately in a bad mood. You are not my father. Yihua looked at Wu Li. This, Doom's eyes, scared Wu Li quite a bit, to the point that he felt as if his heart was going to stop beating. Immediately, Wu Li lowered his head and remained silent. I have been eating at your mother's stall for close to 6 years. No matter how heavy the rain is, your mother would still come out to set up her stall. You should know better than me who she is doing this for. Brat, you should be glad that you have a mother like this. Speaking up to here, Yihua paused for a bit. Just who are my parents? What kind of parents can a skeleton possibly have? Yihua felt that he was thinking too much. However, Yihua didn't think too much about it. What did a skeleton turn into? Could it be that it isn't a human? Hearing Yihua's words, Wu Li lowered his head and didn't dare to refute. This man's gaze is too ferocious, too terrifying. As for the reasoning behind Yihua's words, Wu Li didn't listen to it. Because he was frightened, he didn't hear what Yihua said at all. Xianba, who was on the podium, didn't have the mood to teach anymore and ended the class early. Wu Li seemed to be planning to curry favor with Xianba, and thus, he stood outside and waited for Xianba to come out. However, Xianba didn't dare to come out, because the person who was standing outside was Voidless Realm's Empress Man. And in the Peace Association, everyone was currently shouting the slogan of, Defeat Voidless Realm. If this man were to get angry, wouldn't everyone have to die? After thinking for a while, Xianba felt that he should go out and take a look. I can't just stand there foolishly, right? Just after walking out of the classroom, Xianba saw that man standing at the side and waiting for him. Xianba felt that his heart was about to stop. Sensing that Xianba wasn't feeling well, Old Feng shouted out, Xianba, calm down, there is nothing to be afraid of. Master, this man. Xianba, you can be at ease, Master is here. Old Feng shouted out gravely. Hearing what his master said, Xianba felt a lot more at ease. His master is a powerful deity. He shouldn't be afraid of me. But I am afraid to death. Department Head Xianba. Wu Li shouted out respectfully. Yihua stood at the side and stared at Xianba. Yihua could even see that old man's soul. Right now, Old Feng's mind was trembling violently. I feel that this man saw me. How is this possible? How is it possible for him to see me? If he really saw me, that would be bad. This is the first time that Xianba saw Yihua at such a close distance. I feel that Yihua is very ghostly, just like a mystery. Xianba, We meet again. Yi Hua said faintly. Xian Ba swallowed his saliva. Not knowing how to address Yi Hua, Xian Ba could only shout out, Lord Yi. Wu Li, who was at the side, was dumbfounded. Department head Xian Ba actually addressed him as Lord Yi. The hell? Just what kind of background does this person have? How did my mother get to know him? Why didn't she tell me earlier that there is such a resource? Tonight, I must definitely go back and ask about it clearly. Xian Ba, come over and have a chat with me. Yi Hua said faintly. Xian Ba didn't dare to refuse and said respectfully, all right. Yi Hua turned his head around and looked towards Wu Li. Tonight, go back and accompany your mother. Remember what I said, whether you live or die is up to you. To be able to make Yi Hua speak out to persuade Wu Li, it was most likely only this Wu Li. And Yi Hua was also giving face to the ant. If not, he wouldn't be bothered to care about Wu Li. Chapter 596. Xian Ba obediently followed behind Yi Hua. This made a lot of people feel strange. Why would Xian Ba reveal such an expression? The two of them walked into the emergency exit at the side. Then Yi Hua took out a cigarette and lit it up, while Xian Ba stood at the side while trembling with fear. I don't know why Yi Hua called me over. Could it be that Yi Hua is planning to kill me? Actually, I think very highly of you, and I don't wish for you to die so quickly. Yi Hua breathed out a mouthful of smoke and said faintly. Xian Ba gulped. Lord Yi, have you misunderstood something? Xinba, you were able to win the championship of the North-South martial arts competition, which shows that you have worked very hard. If your hard work is lost under the leadership of a group of idiots, then I will be disappointed. You should understand what I mean. Hearing what Voidless Realm said, how could Xian Ba not understand what Voidless Realm meant? Right now, the Peace Association is wantonly exaggerating their hatred towards Voidless Realm, and they are just waiting to be annihilated in one fell swoop. Initially, Yi Hua thought to himself that there were only so many people in Voidless Realm, and on his side, there were over 100,000 people. Thus, there was still hope for them to win against Voidless Realm. However, after hearing Yi Hua's words, Xian Ba started to doubt Yi Hua. Can I really win against Yi Hua? Xian Ba lowered his head and did not dare to boast. In front of Yi Hua, he was just a primary school student. The Peace Association and the Righteous Alliance are just a joke. You should have your own sky. Who knows, I might become your opponent in the future. You? Xian Ba was dumbfounded. Old Feng was also shocked. Could it be that he really saw it? Xinba quickly agreed to it. Let's make a decision in the future. Elder Feng didn't even think too much about it. When Xian Ba became stronger in the future, there would still be a chance for him to fight. Of course, Xian Ba listened to his master. Lord Yi, I understand. You can be considered to be a sensible person. Develop well. I look forward to your growth. After finished speaking, Yi Hua disappeared from the spot. Xian Ba felt his legs go soft. This man was too terrifying. Just by standing there, he was scared into a limp shrimp. Xian Ba, hurry up and leave this peace association. Don't get involved in any more relationships. Crazy old man hurriedly said. Xian Ba naturally obeyed Yi Hua's words. In actuality, Xian Ba was thinking the same thing in his heart. If there was still a trace of hope in the past, after seeing Yi Hua, he felt that there was basically no hope left. Master, should we tell the others? Xian Ba asked out of kindness. It's none of your business. Leave first. Yes. Xian Ba didn't even want to resign and directly chose to leave. Wu Li, who was outside, directly drove home. He wanted to ask his mother what was going on. Yi Hua's promise was fulfilled, and Wu Li had indeed returned home to accompany his aunt. However, Wu Li still did not give up his current position and chose to despair. After returning to Leisure Bar, Yi Hua saw that Blood Demon was wiping the table. Why does he like to clean up so much? His honor. Seeing that his honor had returned, the Blood Demon hurriedly shouted out. Make a few side dishes. Yes. Yi Hua walked forward and opened the door of Qing Yutong's room. Yi Zizi was still playing her game. Your honor, is it a mission? Yi Zizi tossed Zhu Tian, who was in her embrace, onto the bed. The unconscious Zhu Tian was truly miserable. Yi Zizi had been tossing him around all day. Yi Hua lied on his sister-in-law's bed and said faintly, "It should be soon." "Woo, thank you, Your Honor." Yi Zizi pounced into Yi Hua's embrace and acted coquettishly. Yi Zizi had done this before in the past, and it could be considered as a normal interaction. Patting onto Yi Zizi's head, Yi Hua said faintly, "Do you miss your previous life?" "It's all right. Each has its own benefits." Yi Zizi felt that playing games every day wasn't bad either. "Occasionally, I can go out and kill some people to loosen my muscles and bones. When we go back, we have to maintain our current low-profile attitude." Yi Hua laughed lightly. In the past, being high-profile was really boring. Only being low-profile is the way of the king. "Why? Aren't we just going to kill all of them?" Yi Hua knocked onto Yi Zizi's forehead petulantly. Your Honor, I am so foolish. It was all because of you knocking onto my forehead." Yi Zizi pouted her small mouth and rubbed onto her forehead. "If you dare to spoil my plan, I will smack your butt." N. Zizi will not spoil Your Honor's plan." "Then, can you tell me about Your Honor's plan?" "I promise to keep it a secret." Yi Hua glared at Yi Zizi. "With your big mouth, I reckon that you will tell Lai Gu in no time." "Haha, how is that possible? My mouth is rather small." "Your Honor, take a look." Yi Zizi opened her mouth wide, and her tongue was moving back and forth. Yi Zizi's mouth is truly stimulating, and with the two ponytails at the back of her head, it really makes one want to commit a crime. Patting onto Yi Zizi's butt, Yi Hua said faintly, "Accompany me to eat." "All right." Yi Zizi bounced and jumped as she wore her shoes, then carried Zhu Tian, who was currently unconscious, and walked downstairs. Meanwhile, on the other side, the boss of Justice and Order Alliance Bai Cixin was currently having lunch with the boss of Peace Association, Jiu Yi. The top-notch steak was flown over today, and the steak was still fresh. "Jiu Yi, have you thought it through?" Bai Cixin cut off a piece of steak, then slowly stuffed it into her small mouth and chewed. Jiu Yi laughed. "Alliance Master Bai, this voidless realm is not a place that we can afford to offend. Aren't we being too rash by doing this?" Then what does Jiu Yi want to do? Right now, Bai Cixin was wholeheartedly thinking of bringing down Voidless Realm. Jiu Yi placed down the knife and fork in his hand and said faintly, "Alliance Master Bai should understand this first, right?" "Lord Jiu means to negotiate first?" Bai Cixin's eyebrows wrinkled. "Although it is a bit strange, I feel that this idea is pretty good." Lord Jiu nodded his head. Actually, he was still very fearful in his heart. To be more accurate, he was fearful of the owner of the leisure bar. Who knew how formidable he was? Although his side had the advantage in numbers, he was still not at ease. "That's right, this voidless realm has killed so many of our people, they have to pay the price, right?" What Jiu Yi said is right. A life for a life. No matter how powerful this voidless realm is, they won't be able to withstand the attacks from all of the powers, right? Bai Cixin had an idea in his mind. "I'm going to join hands with everyone to get rid of Voidless Realm. However, there are still a lot of things that I have to do in between." Jiu Yi nodded his head. "That is only natural. In the end, the only one who is powerful in Voidless Realm is the Empress. However, no matter how powerful the Empress is, we still have experts on our side." Bai Cixin cut a small piece of meat again. She did have a lot of masters on her side, especially Atlas, who was still a mystery. Maybe he could even kill the Empress. The Empress died. Then she would be the only Empress in this world. "Jiu Yi, I wish us a happy cooperation." Bai Cixin stretched out her pure white hand. With a smile on his face, Jiu Yi held on to Bai Cixin's delicate hand. "I feel that my hand feels pretty good, smooth and tender." Chapter 597. After eating lunch with Yi Zizi, Yi Hua returned to Voidless Realm. Right now, Yi Hua felt that he was a bit bored, and it seemed that he should do something to do. Ever since last year's North-South martial arts competition, there hadn't been any big events. It was estimated that Xin Ba and Qi Shuwen would not be able to grow up. Right now, they could only rely on the Righteous Alliance and the Peace Association. Right after arriving at Voidless Realm, Yi Hua heard the sound of a flute. When he arrived at the outer courtyard of the bedchamber, he saw his son holding a flute that was about the same length as him, and he was playing it with great vigor. Qingya and Dong Huang Baiji sat at the side and watched, and traces of tenderness could be seen on Dong Huang Li's face. Dong Huang Li was also sitting on her mother's lap and watching her little brother play the flute. From time to time, they would even clap their hands and cheer. The three of them really knew how to show their support. Look at the smile on their son's face. The more he boasted, the more energetic he became. Yi Yan really liked to play the flute now. Especially after hearing his mother and sister's praise, it was even more incredible. He felt like he was playing a divine tune. But Yi Yan, who lacked musical talent, played it like ghosts wailing and wolves howling. Yi Hua and Qing Ye didn't seem to have any musical talent, and they didn't even sing together before. Seeing that his father had appeared, Yi Yan stopped. His little face collapsed and he stood upright without moving. Dong Huang Li also jumped down from her mother's bosom, then lowered her head and admitted her mistake. "All right, Daddy isn't angry anymore," Yi Hua said faintly. Dong Huang Baiji sat on the stone stool at the side and poured a cup of tea for her husband. Hearing that their father wasn't angry anymore, a smile appeared on the two little fellows' faces, and they pounced into Yi Hua's embrace and acted coquettishly. Yi Hua patted his children. "Go and play. Dad, Yan, is learning how to play the flute. It sounds really nice. And little brother, your boasting is very nice." Big sister Dong Huang Li was very nice to Yi Hua. Towards his son's interest in this aspect, Yi Hua didn't stop him. "And not bad." Right now, after obtaining his father's approval, Yi Yan became even more excited. After taking a few steps back, Yi Yan started to play his solo. "All right, although I agree with my son's interest, my son's skill level still needs to be improved. However, looking at the flute in my son's hand, it really is lacking something. Yan, this is for you." Yi Hua instantly took out a black jade flute. This flute's name was Dragon Abyss, and it was a primordial divine artifact that was used for musical attacks. Yi Hua had already forgotten how it came to be, but it was still barely enough for his son to practice with. Qingya and Dong Huang Baiji were already used to their husband casually taking out terrifying things. Therefore, they didn't say anything. Yi Hua would also place a layer of seal on the Dragon Abyss to prevent Yi Yan from destroying it. Yi Yan immediately ran over and took Long Yuan from his father's hands. His big eyes were filled with joy. "Thank you, Dad." Yi Hua nodded his head. One must be polite, and this was something that must be learned from young. Ali was brought up well by Baiji, and Ali was very polite. My son is even more so. Even if he were to kill someone, he would have to be polite. It had to be said that the sound produced by the Dragon Abyss was very moving. If it wasn't for Yi Yan's lack of skill, he would definitely be intoxicated. It could even blow people to death. "Baiji, I just heard that the Peace Association wants to make a move on us." Yi Hua drank a mouthful of tea and said faintly. "Yi Hua, you already know about it?" Dong Huang Baiji was still planning to not tell her husband about it and deal with it herself. Yi Hua nodded his head. Yesterday's matter seemed to have been discovered by someone, and they are using this matter to make a fuss. Just that, what made Yi Hua puzzled was, just who in the world was the one who discovered this? There doesn't seem to be anyone who survived. This is truly very strange. I really hope they don't do anything wrong. Dong Huang Baiji let out a light sigh. Why must you go against my voidless realm? Aren't you just courting death? Yi Hua took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up. Some things are truly unstoppable. Qingya laughed lightly. That's right, some things are indeed unstoppable. Looking at Qingya's expression, Yi Hua felt that something was amiss and asked curiously, "What is unstoppable?" Dong Huang Baiji smiled. "Yi Hua, Qingya is having her second child." "Ah!" Yi Hua was shocked. "I got pregnant again so quickly." Yan, is also going to have a little brother. Yi Yan put down the Dragon Abyss in his hand and smiled. Dong Huang Li was the same as well. "I'm going to have 3 little brothers, haha, Ali is the big sister." It felt like I was the last one to know about it. They all knew about it. Yi Hua suddenly thought of a problem. My 2 wives are pregnant again, and according to their habits, they definitely won't let me touch them. Originally, I already didn't touch Baiji, and there was still Qingya. But now, the 2 of them can forget about it. Why do I have to find things to do recently that are like shooting myself in the foot? Looking at the gloomy expression on their husband's face, Qingya and Dong Huang Baiji laughed lightly. Their husband is definitely feeling gloomy right now. However, Yihua was still very happy that Qingye was able to get pregnant again. However, I have to take some safety measures in the future. If not, this will be too painful. After giving birth to their second child, they won't be able to give birth for the next 10 years. Yihua's dream of having a threesome still hasn't been fulfilled yet. Yihua lightly held onto Qingye's hand and Donghuang Baiji's hand. Yihua was very grateful to them for continuing his bloodline. It has been hard on the two of you, Yihua said earnestly. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji smiled sweetly. Everything was understood without words. The two little fellows stood beside their parents, and while looking at their father and mother, a smile appeared on their faces. What a beautiful and warm scene this was. A family of 5, and there were still 2 little fellows in their mother's tummy. Yihua changed from a lonely life to his current life. He was simply the biggest winner in life. With a wife that he deeply loved, and an adorable child, there was nothing more in life than this. Did I come at the wrong time? Qing Yutong's voice rang out from the side. Yihua turned his head and looked towards his sister-in-law. These 2 wives of mine are no longer able to serve me, so whether or not this sister-in-law should serve me instead is a problem. Your big sister is pregnant. The corner of Yihua's mouth arced up into a smile. Qing Yutong went into a daze for a moment, then immediately rushed to the front of her big sister. So fast. With a gentle smile on her face, Qingye nodded her head. Damn, brother-in-law, you really hit the mark every time. You are amazing. Qing Yutong couldn't help but praise. As expected of a supreme overlord, his ability to give birth is also top-notch. Qingye patted onto the back of her little sister's hand. You have to think about yourself too. Big sister, why are you here again? Qing Yutong was helpless. My big sister urges me every day, making it seem as if I can't get married. Yihua sat on the chair and did not speak. In this world, there are too few men that are worthy of Qing Yutong. Meanwhile, Qing Yutong turned around and blinked her beautiful eyes mischievously at her brother-in-law, seemingly saying, Brother-in-law, if you are not going to make a move, I am going to get married. Chapter 598. With the addition of Qing Yutong, anger became a lot more active. She is already so old, and yet, she is still able to play with 2 children. This made Qingye very helpless. In the future, when my little sister has a child, I reckon that she will still be like this. This is truly making me worry. In the following week, Yihua was indeed having a great time. Because his 2 wives seemed to be embarrassed, the 3 of them were currently sleeping together. Yihua hugged one on his left and one on his right, and he finally got to enjoy it. Although he didn't do anything bad, he still took a step forward. Would the future be far? But here came the problem. Every morning, before the sun had even risen, she could hear her son practicing the flute. That ghostly wail and wolf-like howl really made her unable to sleep. In the beginning, Yihua thought that his son's interest was just too high, and that he would be fine after a few days. However, Yihua had underestimated his son's interest. The torture had only just begun. In an instant, everyone in Voidless Realm was in a bad mood. All of them thought that the Little Highness's popularity was only for a short period of time. From the gratified smile in the beginning, to the despair in the end, the change in the middle was truly comical. Just like what Yi Yan said, he could blow people to death with his flute. On this day, Yihua, who was in his dreams, was currently hugging onto his 2 fragrant wives as he slept. Suddenly, the sound of his son playing the flute rang out beside his ears. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji, who were at the side, also instantly opened their eyes. This Yan. Qingye was truly helpless. My son is so passionate about blowing the flute, and yet, if I go over and tell him to stop blowing the flute, wouldn't that be too much of a blow to my son? Yihua let out a deep sigh. Tomorrow, let's go back to Leisure Bar and sleep. I can't take it anymore. During the past few days, there were also people who reported about Yenner's matter, and the people in Voidless Realm are about to be unable to take it anymore. Donghuang Baiji laughed bitterly. Yen, this fellow is too good at stirring up trouble. Just by playing the flute, he is able to cause such a huge ruckus. In order to not dampen his son's interest in learning, Yihua said lightly, in the future, let's set a time for Yenner to practice. It's not a good thing to continue like this. Qingye felt that what Yihua said was true as well. The strange flute sound continued ringing in their ears, and the three parents were already on the verge of despair, let alone the other people from Voidless Realm, who were currently living in an abyss of suffering. Not long after, the three of them got up. Then they found Yi Yan, who was practicing, and told the little guy to practice at the set time and not start early in the morning. After hearing this, Yi Yan felt that it was okay and compromised. It seemed like he had boasted too much, so he had placed it when everyone was awake. However, during lunchtime, a guard suddenly rushed in to report something. Your Majesty, I've just received news that the Justice and Order Alliance and the Peace Association are requesting to negotiate. Yi Hua put down the chopsticks in his hand. Negotiate? That's right, it's going to be held the day after tomorrow. In fact, they even said that if Voidless Realm doesn't come, they will attack Voidless Realm together with Voidless Realm. Yi Hua laughed lightly. This is a bit interesting. Dong Huang Baiji waved her hand, and the guard bowed his body and left. Yi Hua picked up his chopsticks and picked up some food, then said faintly, "Leave this matter to me." Qing Ya and Dong Huang Baiji didn't say anything either. Yi Yan stood on the stool and said in a childish voice, "Daddy, Yan can also help you do things. When Yan grows up, there will be a lot of things waiting for Yan to do." Yi Hua said lightly. As the son of the original Supreme Overlord, there would only be a lot of things waiting for Yan in the future. Ali is also able to help father. Dong Huang Li naturally wanted to help her father share his burdens. Yi Hua said indifferently, "Right now, your mission is to properly grow up. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." Dong Huang Li and Yi Yan nodded their heads. Dong Huang Li and Yi Yan really hope that they can grow up quickly so that they can help their father. After dinner, Yi Hua returned to Leisure Bar and looked for Yi Zizi. Didn't she want a quest? In that case, Yi Zizi would be in charge of the negotiation. Yi Zizi was very happy. Finally, I am able to do something. Furthermore, His Honor also said that I can talk to them however I want. The prerequisite is to anger them, but of course, I can't kill all of them. Yi Zizi, of course, understood that it was finally her turn to appear. She was really excited. 3 days later, Haigang City, hee. 3 days passed quickly. The international building in Seaport City was the territory of the Righteous Alliance. The negotiation conference this time would also be held here. Among them were two big shots, Lord Jiao and Bai Cixin. Only Feng Di appeared in the Righteous Alliance. Of course, Wang Debao was there as well. Since his wife had come to negotiate, he had to cheer her on as her husband. The entire hall was filled with the upper echelons of both sides. They all had a combination of 2 moons and stars on their chests. They were all powerhouses. And right now, they were currently waiting for Voidless Realm's representative, and all of them were making guesses in low voices. Who do you guys think Voidless Realm will send this time? The Empress might come. The Empress? I haven't even seen the Empress's appearance yet. With the Empress's appearance, after you see her appearance once, you will feel that other women will not be able to enter your eyes at all. Is it that exaggerated? Whoever sees her will know. Right now, Bai Cixin and Lord Jiao were sitting at the top of the round table. This kind of situation was just like when the gangsters were having a meeting, the underlings were all standing at the entrance, and the big brothers were just sitting there. Lord Jiao will Voidless Realm? Right now, Bai Cixin was also uncertain. If the Empress is really going to come, what should I do? However, upon thinking that this is my territory, Bai Cixin felt a lot more at ease. After all, there are still Qing Tiandi and Feng Tian behind me. Lord Jiao smoked his cigar and squinted his eyes. He was also feeling uncertain in his heart, but he still said, "Alliance Master Bai, be at ease, it doesn't matter even if the Empress doesn't come. It will only increase the negative influence of the Empress, which is beneficial to us." Bai Cixin's face became gloomy. This Voidless Realm is truly hard to deal with. When will I be able to take my revenge? Just as everyone was discussing in low voices. Ding! The elevator door opened, and everyone's gaze looked towards the entrance of the elevator. Voidless Realm's people are here. As the elevator door opened, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. A short and small figure could be seen inside the elevator. However, this was not the main point. 2 moon-class experts could be seen floating in the air beside the short figure. The 2 people didn't die, rather, they were struggling with all their might, and their legs were powerlessly kicking against the ground. Everyone discovered that the two people seemed to be the guards below. Yi Zizi appeared in splendid attire today. She was wearing a pink princess dress and a pink big round hat, looking very stylish. Coupled with that cute ponytail of hers, she simply looked like a lovable little loli. Of course, that was during normal times. Right now, she wasn't cute at all. Even if the little loli were to smile, that smile was the smile of death. Yi Zizi's high-heeled shoes made clanking sounds as she blinked her scarlet eyes and sized up the people below. Chapter 599. Suddenly, Wang Debao seemed to have thought of something. The girl inside the coffin. Didn't they dig out a coffin last year when they were fighting over an ancient godly item? The coffin looks exactly the same. Those who witnessed Yi Zizi's appearance back then were all dead, and only this Wang Debao was still alive. Therefore, Wang Debao was confused. However, Wang Debao didn't dare to be sure. Perhaps, the girl only looks similar. However, looking at the current situation, it was clear that the girl came with ill intentions. A Moon-class expert from the Justice and Order Alliance stood out and shouted, "Who are you? Hurry up and release them." Yi Zizi didn't say anything, and a strand of her hair quietly slipped out. Under everyone's surprised voice, the strand of hair pierced through the man's head and directly hung him up. Yi Zizi lightly yawned, then said, "A lowly ant dares to look me straight in the eye." The three people who were hung up in the air were directly sucked dry, and their corpses were thrown to the side by Yi Zizi. Yi Zizi no longer cared about this kind of miscellaneous food. Gods were still the easiest to suck. A little girl came to this kind of situation and killed 3 people just because she didn't agree with them. How arrogant is she? Alright, these were just thoughts. Right now, no one dared to say anything, because the scene was too shocking. They couldn't even look at her. If they looked at her, they would die. Bai Zixin and Jiu Yi were also shocked. Just who is this? Didn't you want to negotiate? Where is she? Yi Zizi didn't even walk over and shouted out. She came to negotiate? This little girl came to negotiate. If that's the case, this little girl is from Voidless Realm. As expected, this Voidless Realm isn't a good thing. An organization that randomly kills people, this kind of organization should be eliminated. Everyone was just thinking about it, but no one stood out. Because everyone was afraid of death. A Moon-class expert died without even being able to resist. How terrifying. Yi Zizi took out a lollipop and put it in her mouth. Are we not going to negotiate anymore? Feng Di snorted coldly. What a silly little girl. Is there no one else in Voidless Realm? Yi Zizi looked at Feng Di, and an evil smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Little big brother has an opinion of me? Humph. Pretending to be mysterious. Feng Di twisted his fist and said with a strong murderous aura. Yi Zizi suddenly opened a pink flower umbrella and said with a smile, "Little brother, come here." As the leader of the Righteous Alliance, how could Feng Di endure such mockery? He immediately threw a punch towards Yi Zizi with the roar of a tiger. Yi Zizi's clothes fluttered in the wind, showing how violent this punch was. The people standing at the side exclaimed, "What a powerful punch! Indeed, this is the most awesome punch I've ever seen. I reckon that this punch will turn everything into dust." Everyone spoke one after another, as if Yi Zizi was about to die under this punch. Yi Zizi shrugged her shoulders. Why would they think that way? She was really unhappy. Against such a person, Yi Zizi did not need to use her full strength at all. In fact, she did not even need to use a tiny bit of her strength. A single strand of hair was enough to settle it. Boom. Feng Di's punch seemed to have landed on thin air, leaving everyone speechless. However, only Feng Di knew what his punch had landed on. Feng Di's gaze focused, and a strand of hair entered his eyes. She actually used a strand of hair to block my punch. How is this possible? Little brother is not much. I am very disappointed. Yi Zizi slowly spat out. Her hair was like a sharp bayonet that pierced through Feng Di's head at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. From the perspective of others, Feng Di was just standing there without moving, and Yi Zizi was the same as well. Feng Di only felt a chill in the center of his brows, and his head started hurting. After that, his ears started ringing. Blood flowed down from Feng Di's forehead, and this caused everyone to reveal an expression of panic. Nothing happened just now. Why did Feng Di's forehead start bleeding? Could it be this little girl? But that's not possible. I didn't even see her make a move. Feng Di looked at the little girl in front of him blankly, and his vision became completely red. Feng Di's consciousness also became blurry, and he directly fell backwards. Yi Zizi licked her lollipop and said with a smile, "Who else?" Everyone shifted their gaze away. Feng Di is a powerful being with 3 moons, and he died just like that. Are we really Voidless Realm's opponent? This question appeared in everyone's heart. This little girl's performance is too overpowered. It's impossible for us to resist at all. Who is going to negotiate with us? If you don't speak, I'm going to slap you. Yi Zizi felt that the mission that his honor gave her was too easy, and there was no technique involved at all. If I had known that this mission would be so boring, I wouldn't have come. I might as well just stay at home and play games. In the future, it's best that I don't take on missions like this anymore, and I can't kill too many people. Sigh. In actuality, Yi Zizi's change wasn't that big. She was still as bloodthirsty as before, and the only thing that changed was that her mind had matured slightly. She wasn't as reckless as before, and she knew how to think. Feng Di's death caused Bai Cixin and Wang Debao to be dumbstruck. Feng Di is Feng Tian's blood-related younger brother. However, what can we do now? There's simply nothing we can do. Jiao Yi and Bai Cixin let out a breath of relief, then slowly stood up. This Voidless Realm's people really don't act according to common sense. They killed someone right away, and we can only walk over to negotiate with them. But what else can we do? This is a world where the strong are respected, and what the strong say goes. The weak don't have the qualifications to speak. When Yi Zizi saw the 2 of them walking over, she naturally didn't plan to kill them, because the 2 of them were important people. Speak, what do you want to talk about? Yi Zizi's pair of scarlet eyes caused Jiao Yi and Bai Cixin to be afraid. In this sort of situation, negotiating with them is just like a joke. Voidless Realm. Before Bai Cixin could finish speaking, Yi Zizi already decided to speak. Is it your turn to care about what Voidless Realm does? Do you really think that the world has changed? Yi Zizi said with a light smile. Yi Zizi's sweet voice made everyone feel very comfortable, and they even felt like falling asleep. Everyone thought to themselves, is this little girl so domineering? Bai Cixin mustered up her courage and said, even the emperor who commits a crime will be punished with the same punishment, let alone Voidless Realm. Yi Zizi sneered, Voidless Realm is the law. Everyone took in a breath of cold air. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Jiao Yi remained silent as he pondered in his heart. I'll just let Bai Cixin, who is beside me, speak. Could it be that your Voidless Realm is going to let us off just like that? Bai Cixin still has a bit of courage. Under the situation where there is such a huge disparity in strength, she is still able to say such a thing. Then, what do you want to do? Yi Zizi asked curiously. Voidless Realm has to give a corresponding punishment. If not, you will have to bear the consequences. Bai Cixin shouted out. Wang Debao, who was at the side, was prepared to come out and protect his wife at any moment, and his back was already drenched with cold sweat. Chapter 600. Yi Zizi grinned. Ignorant humans. You are not the first to say such a thing. The last person who said such a thing is already dead. Do you want to repeat the same mistake? In this world, there will always be some people who want to test the bottom line, and when they truly test the bottom line, they will know how terrifying the despair within is. Unless they are the kind of people who eat despair for breakfast. This is no longer the matter of the North. It is the matter of the entire North and South. Does Voidless Realm dare to kill so many people? Aren't they afraid of the wrath of the heavens? Bai Cixin was also angered. The matter of being chased out of the North by Voidless Realm was still on her mind, and if she doesn't understand it, she won't be able to feel at ease for the rest of her life. Wrath of the heavens? Actually, I am Wrath of the heavens. Yi Zizi said faintly, and the scarlet in her eyes became even more intense. I really want to kill this self-righteous woman in front of me. Where did she get the courage to say such a thing? Is it Liang Jingru? Bai Cixin was angered to the point that she was a bit speechless. This is simply the most absurd negotiation. It is more like Voidless Realm's declaration of war. Jiao Yi remained silent, giving off a look of, I don't casually provoke others. The negotiation ends here. Voidless Realm welcomes you all. Yi Zizi laughed. I am really looking forward to that day. I wonder if his honor will wipe out everyone like what happened in Heaven's Mansion. If that is really the case, it might be a little interesting. Everyone didn't dare to say anything. They didn't expect that just one person from Voidless Realm would be able to suppress everyone, and furthermore, kill people without reason. Under that cute appearance, he was extremely savage. Just as Yi Zizi was preparing to go out and eat something good, a figure suddenly appeared. The person who came was precisely Feng Tian. Looking at his little brother who was lying on the ice-cold floor, Feng Tian walked over expressionlessly, and with a cold look in his eyes he said, "Who did this?" Yi Zizi slowly turned around and said with a smile, "Me." Feng Tian looked towards Yi Zizi, and the eyes under the mask were actually spinning. A wave of killing intent immediately spread out, causing everyone to take 3 steps back. "Do you want to fight with me as well?" Yi Zizi asked curiously as she blinked her beautiful eyes. How could Feng Tian possibly hold back? His killing intent immediately rose. "I want you to die." "All right, let's go somewhere else to play." Yi Zizi was delighted. "I finally met someone who can fight. This feeling isn't bad." After saying that, Yi Zizi disappeared. Feng Tian disappeared as well. The hearts of everyone present were filled with anticipation. Let's kill this little girl. She's too terrifying. Thousands of kilometers away, Yi Zizi appeared. Soon, Feng Tian also appeared. Wow, the air here is really good. Yi Zizi raised her head and closed her beautiful eyes as she took a deep breath. It was really comfortable. Feng Tian's hands were trembling and a majestic spiritual pressure was released uncontrollably. Feng Tian's right hand slowly gripped his mask. Pah! Feng Tian took off his mask because he wanted to kill the person in front of him in the cruelest way possible. The moment Feng Tian took off his mask, the sky changed color. Dark clouds covered the sky and thunder rumbled. The terrifying spiritual energy swept across the sky and turned into a strange scene. The spiritual energy was so strong that it seemed like it was going to tear the air apart. The moment Feng Tian took off his mask, he lowered his head as though he was lifeless. Yi Zizi held onto her pink umbrella and mumbled, "He's quite powerful." All of a sudden, white gloves appeared on Feng Tian's hands, and the spiritual pressure surged once again. The grass seemed to be unable to withstand such power and started splitting apart. Feng Tian suddenly disappeared while laughing maniacally. Yi Zizi wrinkled her brows and leaned her head to the right. A fist appeared on the left side of Yi Zizi's face. Yi Zizi was startled for a moment. Then she lightly leaped up. This person's speed and strength are not bad. Much stronger than those deities. Yi Zizi, who had leaped up high, lowered her head and saw that there was no one there. All of a sudden, she felt a violent power coming from above her head. Yi Zizi felt that it was time for her to loosen up. Back then, she fought with his honor, and I felt really good. It has already been more than half a year, and I still haven't gotten the chance to fight. It wasn't easy for me to meet someone that I can fight with, so I have to have a good fight with him. Yi Zizi clenched her small fist and punched toward the direction above her head. Boom! The collision between the two fists caused the entire sky to tremble. A huge shockwave spread out, and even a dazzling light exploded out from the collision. Haha! Not bad. You are actually able to block a punch from me. Feng Tian's face was extremely distorted, and he looked just like a lunatic. Yi Zizi smiled and said, "You are not bad yourself. Let me see how many punches you can take from me then." Feng Tian shouted out violently, and the spiritual energy around his body became a bit denser. There wasn't any technique involved in his punches, and he simply punched and retracted his fists. At this level, everything else was no longer that important. A single punch from him was enough to destroy the world. Yi Zizi held onto the umbrella with her left hand and fought against Feng Tian with her right hand. Every single punch landed on Feng Tian's body, and it was extremely terrifying. Every time their punches collided, a powerful spiritual energy fluctuation would be produced, and a crack in space would slowly form. Feng Tian's punches could be seen becoming faster and faster, and the strength of his punches also became more and more ferocious. Yi Zizi adjusted the strength of her punches according to Feng Tian's strength so that she wouldn't be able to smash Feng Tian into pieces with a single punch. This punch isn't bad. It's very crafty. If your punches were a bit faster, your punches would be able to graze the corner of my clothes. Although Yi Zizi was punching Feng Tian, she was also lecturing Feng Tian non-stop. What was the combination of strength and speed? That was perfect. Feng Tian couldn't do it here, there, or anywhere else. She made Feng Tian sound like he was useless. From the start, Feng Tian went berserk, and the more he fought, the darker his expression became. When experts fought, they would hold back and wouldn't go all out. But now, Feng Tian was slowly releasing his strength, but Lin Fan was like a bottomless pit. No matter how he adjusted, Lin Fan was able to receive his punches. Such a situation caused Feng Tian to be speechless. His maniacal and vicious face sank, and it was as if he was beaten to the point of being autistic. Yi Zizi put away the small umbrella and chuckled. "All right, I'll fight you seriously." "What? Weren't you serious enough just now?" Feng Tian didn't dare to be careless, and he stared at Yi Zizi. In less than a breath, Feng Tian saw the small fist in front of him getting bigger and bigger. Feng Tian hurriedly blocked it, and he was forced back dozens of meters. Yi Zizi waved her fist. "You have to hold on. I am coming." After saying that, Yi Zizi disappeared from the spot. Feng Tian didn't dare to be careless, and he exploded with all his strength. From time to time, waves of energy would explode out from the grassland, and the torn space would get bigger and bigger. A terrifying aura was emitted from within, as if there was a strong creature that was about to make a move. As long as the torn space got bigger, the terrifying existence inside would appear and destroy the world. Chapter 601. A human figure fell down from the sky, leaving behind a huge crater on the ground. However, the human figure then rushed back up to the sky from the crater. Then, the human figure fell down again, then rushed back up again. Countless craters could be seen appearing on the ground. Yi Zizi was also bored from fighting, so she stood in the sky and waved her fists weakly. Feng Tian was just like a sandbag, going up and down. But no matter what, he still rushed forward without any hesitation. That ferocity of his is admirable. Yi Zizi let out a light sigh. The difference in strength is still so big, and only his honor is able to defeat me. Yi Zizi lowered her head and looked at Feng Tian, who was lying in the crater. Yi Zizi slowly descended and stood beside the crater. Feng Tian, who was lying in the crater, could be seen being severely injured. One of his eyes was big while the other was small, and both of his arms were twisted at a weird angle. Yi Zizi spat out lightly. "This is so miserable. This scene seems so familiar." Back then, Feng Tian also looked at the blood demon in the crater like this. "I didn't expect that a few months later, I would experience it myself." Feng Tian's gaze was a bit slack as he looked at the sky foolishly, as if he couldn't accept such a cruel reality. Judging from his expression, he was really beaten to the point that he started doubting his life. However, Yi Zizi didn't plan to kill this man. "He is already so miserable. I reckon that he will become a cripple." Sigh. "I can only blame myself for being too strong. It's hard to find an opponent." Yi Zizi opened up her umbrella, and suddenly, a gale swept over. At the same time, the gale also brought along a vicious aura. The enormous pressure caused the entire ground to tremble. Yi Zizi turned her head around and looked blankly. Such a big, husky. Yi Zizi's description of the husky was rather fitting. It was about the same size as the husky, but its size was shockingly huge. Yi Zizi looked just like a small dot. This was a prehistoric ferocious beast, Yun Lang. It was the same rank as the Inferno Abyssal Dragon that Yi Hua summoned back then. And for it to appear here today was completely an accident. "Ah!" Yun Lang raised his head and let out a long howl. "I can finally see the sky. After being locked in the void for so long. How hateful. Puny humans, go and die. How can you be a match for me, Yun Lang?" Yi Zizi saw that the husky was grimacing in pain, looking extremely fierce. Just like in the video, Yi Zizi looked as if he was going to fight with a Tibetan Mastiff. "Big brother, I'm just joking, don't take it seriously." Feng Tian, who was lying in the pit, also saw the husky. However, he was still expressionless. He didn't know how to feel anymore. Yi Zizi felt as if she had lost a dog. This husky didn't seem to be so husky. It would be perfect if it could wag its tail. Roar! Yun Lang roared angrily at Yi Zizi. Lowly human, kneel down. Yi Zizi snorted. Do you think you're the only one who knows how to roar? Yi Zizi took a deep breath and released all of her aura. Then she opened her small mouth and shouted, Roar! How was this a little girl's voice? It was more ferocious than a beast's. Speaking of which, Yi Zizi's true form wasn't that of a human. Rather, it was more or less the same as a ferocious beast. Coupled with the fact that her aura was fully unleashed, it was indeed very frightening. The hair on Yun Lang's body fluttered from Yi Zizi's wind. His eyes widened in horror. Such an expression on the husky's face did not seem out of place. It was a normal expression. Yi Zizi wiped her mouth and took out a lollipop. Yun Lang swallowed his saliva. He didn't dare to run away at all. That aura just now was simply terrifying to the extreme. It was even more powerful than the person who banished me into the void. What are you standing there for? Become small. Yi Zizi said petulantly. You're really stupid. Yun Lang didn't dare to speak anymore. His body immediately shrunk to the size of a dog. A pure-blooded husky appeared. Wag your tail. Yi Zizi said curiously. Yun Lang lowered his head with a face full of fear. He could only listen to Yi Zizi and wag his tail. Ha fun. Yi Zizi was extremely excited. This dog is much more fun than that cat. Yun Lang was in despair. He suddenly discovered that the void was pretty good. Although it was a bit dark, there wasn't anyone who looked at me as a dog. Why am I so unlucky to meet such a person the moment I come out? Not right. I should be glad that I didn't get killed by such a person. In actuality, being a dog isn't bad either. I heard that all dogs eat and sleep and eat. Thinking up to here, Yun Lang felt a bit relieved. Being a dog is really good. Feng Tian, who was in the pit, didn't know what happened. He just felt a very terrifying aura, and then it disappeared. However, that wasn't the main issue. I was actually beaten up by a little girl, ruthlessly beaten up without any mercy. Feng Tian appeared to be in a daze. After returning back, Yi Zizi reported the mission to Yi Hua. Yi Hua was rather satisfied. At the very least, Yi Zizi controlled herself well and only killed 3 people. If I didn't guess wrongly, they should be attacking soon, right? If that's the case, I should also make some preparations and think of a good way to act cool. I have already used all the previous methods, and there's nothing new about them. I have to think of something unique. Yi Hua, how did the negotiation go? Dong Huang Baiji walked over and asked curiously. The negotiation failed. They want you to apologize. Yi Hua was speaking the truth. To actually want my woman to apologize, don't you know that my woman cannot be provoked? Dong Huang Baiji appeared to be panting with anger. Of course, this was only in front of her husband. If she was in front of outsiders, her face would be cold. Baiji, what do you think we should do? They should be attacking us together, and by then, there would be quite a lot of them. Yi Hua asked curiously, not knowing what choice Dong Huang Baiji would make. There was a world of difference between killing 100 people and killing a few 100,000 people. Dong Huang Baiji pondered for quite a while, then said with a cold look in her eyes, to come and invade my voidless realm. That's an enemy, and there's nothing to talk about when facing an enemy. This is my good woman. Yi Hua hugged Dong Huang Baiji into his embrace. It wasn't easy for her to be enlightened. Aya, don't hug me too tightly. Be careful of my child. Dong Huang Baiji pouted coquettishly, fearing that she might hurt her child. Although she knew it would be fine, as a mother, it was normal for her to be worried. Making a mountain out of a molehill. I'm going back for a while. Yi Hua said lightly, then returned to Leisure Bar. In actuality, I wanted to go and buy a Chinese jianbing and ask the auntie about her son's situation. After all, I, the Supreme Overlord, had promised to help her son. Walking out of Leisure Bar, Yi Hua arrived at the entrance of the alley. Although it is already 10 a.m., the aunties are still setting up their stall, and there are also quite a number of people who are buying Chinese crepes. It was probably lunchtime. Give me a fruit jianbing. Yi Hua walked over and said faintly. When the aunt saw that it was Yi Hua, her face lit up. Thank you so much. Hearing what Wu Li said, Yi Hua knew that Wu Li should have gone back. I told you I could help you. Chapter 602. Seeing the warm smile on the ant's face, Yihua nodded his head, hoping that his son would not do anything foolish. Otherwise, how painful it would be to leave his old mother in this world. Here's your fruit jianbing, eat it while it's hot. The ant passed the fruit jianbing to Yihua. Yihua held it in his hand, and feeling the heat coming from it, he let out a breath and walked back to Leisure Bar. While looking at Yihua's back view, the ant revealed a look of gratefulness. What a good person. Is Yihua a good person? Yihua was obviously not a good person. For him to be able to do all these for the auntie, he had already reached the point of being extremely benevolent. If her son continues to persist in going about things the wrong way, Yihua wouldn't continue to dissuade him. It was just a pity for this kind-hearted auntie. While eating a Chinese jianbing, Yihua returned back to Leisure Bar. Just in time, he saw a dog running in the hall, and Blood Demon was holding onto a mop and chasing after the dog ferociously. Looking at the dog, Blood Demon seemed to be itching to make a dog meat hot pot tonight. Yihua was able to discern the dog's breed with a single look, and he was a bit surprised. Why did such a ferocious beast come to this place? Perhaps it was because Yun Lang was running too quickly and was actually running towards Yihua's direction. However, Yun Lang's head was looking towards the Blood Demon that was at the back. It was as if he was teasing the Blood Demon. There was a loud bang. Yun Lang's head knocked onto Yihua's calf, and after letting out the unique howl of a husky, Yun Lang fell onto the ground. Yun Lang did not cower and immediately stood up. With a face full of vigilance, he looked at Yihua and let out a low roar, seeming like he was about to make a move. Your Honor, this dog stole food from the kitchen, peed on the table, and even bit on the table. Blood Demon hurriedly pointed out the evidence of the husky's crimes. This only meant one thing. This was a genuine husky. Yihua raised his leg and gave a kick. To actually dare to bare his teeth at me, you sure have guts. Yun Lang let out that unique howl again, but it wasn't a big deal. He stood up and ran upstairs, barking like a dog as he ran, as though he was saying, "Wait for me, I'll go call big brother, oh no, big sister." Yihua didn't pay attention to it and sat at the bar counter. Blood Demon respectfully poured wine for Yihua. This Chinese jianbing is quite good to pair with wine. Soon, Yun Lang called big sister down. Yihua took a look at the dog then said faintly, "The dog that you brought back? Your Honor, what do you think of this husky? Is it a ha?" Yi Zizi pinched onto Yun Lang's ear and said with a smile. At this moment, Yun Lang felt a little giddy. Just what kind of world is this? Big sister actually called this man Lord. Could it be that this man is a supreme being? Even if it's a supreme martial artist, I, silly husky, will not back down. No, even I, Yun Lang, will not cower. It wasn't that Yihua hadn't raised a dog before, but this dog breed seemed to be a bit inferior. Zizi, don't bring everything into the house. Things. He actually called me, Yun Lang, a thing. Big sister, hurry up and shout. Yi Zizi directly sat on Yihua's embrace and acted coquettishly. Your Honor, aren't I too bored? With a dog, I can also go out for a walk. Wah! Big sister, how can you do this? Where is your dignity? You are actually acting like a spoiled child in this man's arms. Besides, I'm doing this for everyone's sake. We'll have dog meat to eat during the spring festival. Yi Zizi grinned. The corners of Yun Lang's mouth twitched violently. Was he hallucinating just now? They must be talking about someone else. I, Yun Lang, am a primordial ferocious beast. Do you know what a ferocious beast is? The kind that was very fierce. Super fierce. Sit down. Yi Zizi shouted out towards Yun Lang. Yun Lang sat down without even thinking. Lick my tongue. Yun Lang stuck out his tongue and exhaled loudly. Your Honor, is this husky very stupid? Yun Lang. Yihua rubbed onto the bridge of his nose, then took a sip of wine. Watch for yourself. Seeing that his honor agreed, Yi Zizi suddenly kissed onto Yihua's cheek, then sat on Yun Lang's back. Husky, bring me upstairs to play games. Wu Yun Lang was still very cooperative, and he carried Yi Zizi upstairs. Yihua shook his head helplessly, then looked at the Blood Demon who was currently carefully wiping a cup. That focused attitude of his made it seem as if he was doing something big. This blood demon is rather interesting. Not only is he not good at causing harm to the common people, but he is also good at cleaning. Your Honor, are you going to eat lunch here? I will go and prepare. Blood demon placed down the cup in his hand and asked respectfully. It's okay. Yihua still planned to return to Voidless Realm to accompany his wife and child. Right now, I am a man who has to take care of a family. The changes in this year sure are huge. Last year I was still alone. Yes. Blood Demon replied respectfully. Right now, Feng Tian who was in the crater was looking at the blue sky and white clouds stupidly, and he didn't even notice that Qing Tian had suddenly appeared beside him. Qing Tian murmured. He's been beaten silly. After letting out a light sigh, Qing Tian still brought Feng Tian away, then put on the mask on Feng Tian. After returning to the base, Qing Tian treated Feng Tian's injuries. All of them were just some superficial injuries, so the treatment was much simpler. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin who were standing at the side had grave expressions on their faces. This Feng Tian was actually beaten silly by that little girl to the point that he became autistic. Big brother Qing, this Feng Tian. Wang Debao couldn't help but ask. Qing Tian let out a long sigh, then shook his head. I'm afraid that it will be hard for him to recover. His self-esteem has been completely destroyed. Just how miserable is he? Bai Cixin said lightly. Completely destroyed just like that. Is there really such a terrifying thing in the world? Qing Tian smiled faintly. This means that the little girl is very powerful, to be able to beat someone with such a strong self-esteem to such a state. Then, Big Brother Qing, are you able to win against him? Wang Debao asked probingly. Qing Tian hesitated for a moment, then said, It's hard to say, I will only know after I fight him. Hearing what Qing Tian said, Wang Debao and Bai Cixin both became silent. Right now, Justice and Order Alliance was relying on Qing Tian to keep up appearances. However, right now, even Qing Tian doesn't have the confidence to win against Feng Tian. Don't be so pessimistic. Go and order a takeaway first. That roasted pig trotter is not bad. It's very flavorful. Give me 2. I will let this Feng Tian think about life. Qing Tian smiled faintly, then walked out of the room. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin took a look at each other. They were a bit confused. When they came downstairs, they saw that Qing Tian was currently leisurely watching TV, seemingly not putting the problem in his heart at all. Bai Cixin sat beside Qing Tian, while Wang Debao was in charge of the outside. Big brother Qing, what should we do about Voidless Realm? Bai Cixin still wanted to ask about the situation clearly. After all, they cannot be careless. Qing Tian was currently watching If You Are the One, and with a smile on the corner of his mouth, he said, Just continue to fan the flames, when it's about time, we will attack. Do we have any hope of winning against them? Bai Cixin was very worried. Yi Zizi's appearance caused Bai Cixin to lose confidence, and furthermore, Feng Tian was also beaten to such a state. Qing Tian placed his chin on his hand and said faintly, No. Chapter 603. Wang Debao went into a daze. Since there aren't any, why are we still going? Isn't that just courting death? Bai Cixin didn't understand and asked, Since there aren't any, why are we still going? Do you think there's any difference between killing hundreds of people and hundreds of thousands of people? Qing Tian slowly looked towards Bai Cixin. The latter's heart trembled, and she didn't dare to look straight at Qing Tian's eyes. Wang Debao slapped onto his thigh and cried out, Big brother Qing. By doing this you mean? That's right. This is what I mean. Qing Tian laughed lightly. But, what exactly does he mean? Bai Cixin glared at her husband. What are you doing here, pretending to know what you don't know? Wang Debao scratched the back of his head and felt a bit awkward. I didn't expect that Big brother Qing wouldn't act according to the norm. Big brother Qing, don't hide it anymore. What exactly do you mean? Bai Cixin asked solemnly. She didn't know what Qing Tian was planning to do. Since there isn't any chance of winning, why are we still going? Qing Tian took out a piece of tissue, wiped the back of his hand, then said indifferently, If Voidless Realm really massacred hundreds of thousands of people, what difference do you think there is between that and hundreds of people? Bai Cixin and Wang Debao opened their mouths wide. At this moment, They finally understood what Qing Tian meant. Courting death. Sending these people to die as cannon fodder. This method is simply infuriating. Qing Tian continued, if we don't use our lives to attract hatred, what should we use to attract hatred? The husband and wife's entire body went numb from Qing Tian's words. That relaxed look on their face made it seem as if they were playing a game, and they didn't put human lives in their eyes at all. Ordinary people are unable to bring down Voidless Realm. Only some old monsters can be lured out. However, these old monsters will not come out unless they have no other choice. You too should understand what I mean, right? Qing Tian yawned. A plan has to be done step by step. It can't be too fast, after all, haste makes waste. Old monsters? Wang Debao asked confusedly. Qing Tian folded the tissue in his hand and placed it at the side. This Feng Tian is also an old monster, it's just that his strength is relatively weaker. These people hide in the crowd and don't care about the secular world. As long as nothing big happens, they won't make a move. Alright, I am also one of these old monsters. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin were shocked. This was the first time they had heard of an old monster, and Qing Tiandi was one of them. Just how many unknowns are there in this world? Alright, take your time to digest this news. Don't forget to spread hatred. Qing Tian reminded them and then continued to watch the TV with a look that said, don't disturb me anymore. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin were also very tactful and did not continue to ask. The father and son walked to the garden outside the house and chatted softly. Wife, Wang Debao said worriedly. Bai Cixin knew what her husband wanted to say, so she said in a sweet voice, I know, don't worry. Although revenge was important, it was also necessary to be alive. From Qing Tian's performance, it seemed that there was no trust in him. He had to leave a way out for himself. Even if they were exposed, at least they would have a chance to live. At this moment, Lord Jiu was not in a hurry to return to Long'an City. Instead, he was walking on the streets, holding the 8848 titanium phone in his hand. This was because another master had sent a message saying that he wanted to meet him, and Lord Jiu was currently on the way there. Speaking of old monsters, Lord Jiu had many masters like this. Standing outside of a Starbucks, Lord Jiu was a bit surprised. Meeting here? Isn't this too rash? However, these masters all have their own eccentricities, and I am already used to it. Walking into the Starbucks, there were a few youngsters sitting inside, and there were also a few waiters. Lord Jiu observed these youngsters and felt that something was wrong. Did I go to the wrong place? There's no mistake. This is the right place. Mister, do you need anything? A waiter asked with a smile. Lord Jiu let out a breath. Perhaps, the master hasn't arrived yet. Give me a cup of latte. Lord Jiu said faintly. All right. Please wait a moment. Lord Jiu chose a seat and quietly waited. From time to time, he would take out his phone and look at it. Master couldn't have forgotten about it, right? Your coffee. The waiter served the coffee and said with a smile. Lord Jiu nodded his head, then took a sip of the coffee and wrinkled his brows. As expected, I am still not suitable to drink coffee. Seeing that Lord Jiu didn't say anything, the waiter returned to his position. Time passed by, and Lord Jiu was about to fall asleep. Leave. That was impossible. His master had asked him to come, but he had left. Wasn't that the same as dying? The reason why I, Lord Jiu, am able to get to where I am today is because I have an extremely strong sense of smell. Master must be testing my patience. Maybe he's using binoculars to peek. Master was so mischievous. As the curtain of night descended, the master had yet to arrive, and Jiu Yi had already fallen asleep. He had already refilled countless cups of coffee, yet he was still able to fall asleep. After an unknown amount of time, Lord Jiu heard a young lady's voice. Sir, we're off work. Jiu Yi slowly opened his eyes, took a puzzled look, then looked at his watch. It is already so late. Seems like master has already forgotten about me. Sigh. Lord Jiu stood up and walked out of Starbucks. It was still a little cold in Harbor City late at night. Lord Jiu straightened his collar and called for a taxi. Sorry to keep you waiting. Lord Jiu's eyes suddenly froze. Could the voice behind him be his master? Slowly turning his head, the corner of Lord Jiu's mouth twitched. Isn't that the waiter from the beginning? Shit! Lord Jiu swallowed his saliva and sized him up carefully. Ordinary long sleeves, jeans, a broken car, a bicycle, and looking at the age of the waiter, he seems to only be in his early 20s. This is my master? Who are you trying to bluff? Don't be deceived by my appearance. Jiu Yi was still a bit nervous as he asked while trembling with fear, Master, how should I address you? Just call me Chu Ying. Chu Ying? To actually have such a feminine name, Master. Weren't you too hasty when you chose the name? Jiu Yi only dared to think about it in his heart, and even more so did not dare to call out his master's name. Master, I wonder why you called me over? Jiu Yi lowered his head and asked. Chu Ying propped up the bicycle, then took out a can of refine from the plastic bag. Do you want a drink? Thank you, Master. Jiu Yi received the can with both of his hands, and Chu Ying opened a can of refine. Jiu Yi reminded, Master, it is not safe to drive after drinking. Chu Ying, who was raising her head, went into a daze for a moment, then took a look at her bicycle and said with a smile, Indeed, it is not safe to drive after drinking. Jiu Yi smiled, then opened the can of refine that was in his hands and discovered that the taste was not bad. Chapter 604. Chu Ying put the Rio back into the plastic bag and got on her bike. I didn't ask you to come today, so go do your work. Then, Master, the matter about dealing with Voidless Realm that you mentioned? Jiu Yi shouted out hurriedly. Right now, I don't have any confidence in my heart. Just a little girl from Voidless Realm is enough to intimidate everyone. Chu Ying waved her hand as she rode her bicycle. Do as you see fit. Looking at his master disappearing on the street, Jiu Yi was a bit stupefied. This master is the one that has the least pretentious amongst all of the masters, and he actually let me handle such a big matter. A Maybach stopped beside Lord Jiu, and a Moon-class elite quickly got off and opened the door for Lord Jiu. Lord Jiu thought to himself that his masters were all low-key, and he was sitting in such a luxurious car. Wasn't it a bit too much? It shouldn't be too much. One should know how to enjoy life. This master is actually working at Starbucks. This is really blinding my eyes. Meanwhile, inside Voidless Realm, Yi Hua and his two wives were preparing to sleep. Although all of them wanted to sleep together, Yi Hua didn't force them. If he really wanted to force them, it wouldn't be a problem for him to do so. However, the feeling of doing so wouldn't be too good. He had to make them be willing to do so first. Hugging onto the most beautiful and sexiest woman in the world, Yi Hua felt very good in his heart. Although he couldn't use his gun for real, it was still possible for him to have some fun. Qing Ya and Donghuang Baiji also wouldn't say anything about it. You have to be prepared. The Righteous Alliance and the Peace Association will not let this matter rest. The two wives who were sleeping at the side remained silent, and their faces were completely red. It seems like the feeling is starting to come. I'm asking you guys a question. Why aren't you guys talking? Yi Hua asked puzzledly, then turned his head around to take a look. These two women obviously wanted to die, but they were still stubbornly holding on. What was the point? They were already an old couple, yet she was still shy. Is it comfortable? Yi Hua couldn't help but tease. Qing Ya and Donghuang Baiji felt very gloomy. The only thing they could do was to hold on to their husband's hand tightly and not let him act recklessly. Donghuang Baiji hurriedly changed the topic. If they were to really come this time, we wouldn't let them go either. Qing Ya, who was at the side, nodded her head. They have already killed their way to our doorstep. Could it be that we still have to endure silently? Yi Hua was very satisfied with the wives' attitude. It seems like the soft-heartedness in their hearts have already disappeared. All right. This time, we will show the world. If he dares to come to Voidless Realm, then he will not be able to return. Yi Hua shouted out lightly, and his eyes shone with bloodthirst. Since this is your choice, then I shall grant you death. Another month passed by very quickly. It was almost May Day, but the entire world seemed to have adapted to the new environment. There were more and more cultivators, while the Righteous Alliance and the Peace Association swelled day and night. Furthermore, an attack was also quietly breaking out. The two great powers had already decided to attack Voidless Realm. This was a piece of exciting news. If several 100,000 people were to attack Voidless Realm, They would definitely be able to flatten the entire voidless realm. Just thinking about it makes me feel great. I heard that there are a lot of treasures in voidless realm, and when the time comes, I will definitely be able to snatch a lot of treasures. In short, exterminating voidless realm would bring a lot of benefits. This was also a magnificent feat of exterminating a demon, and this was also a great act of enforcing justice on behalf of heaven. Everyone was getting restless, and they couldn't wait to kill everyone in voidless realm, plunder everything, and burn everything down. Within Wang Debao's villa, Qing Tiandi was the same as usual. He was currently watching television, and in front of him was a bowl of braised beef instant noodles. The entire house was filled with the smell of instant noodles. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin were the same as well. They were very busy recently, and they had to make arrangements for all kinds of people. Suddenly, a sound rang out from the stairs. The three looked towards the stairs, and Feng Tian could be seen walking down. This was the first time he came down this month. Feng Tian could be seen to be completely dispirited. His face was filled with stubble, and his hair was not tidied up either. He was beaten up to the point where he could no longer take care of himself. Feng Tian slowly sat down and said in a low voice, "I'm hungry." Everyone. Wang Debao hurriedly went to prepare instant noodles, then gave them to Feng Tian. Feng Tian picked up the bowl of instant noodles and said, "Give me another bowl." Feng Tian finished eating bowl after bowl of instant noodles. It was truly an endless cycle. After finishing eating, Feng Tian let out a sigh, then stood up and paused for a moment, then walked back upstairs. Everyone could still hear the sound of the bedroom door closing. Did he recover? Or is he still autistic? Qing Tiandi laughed, then drank a mouthful of soup. This is so fragrant. How are the preparations on your side? Qing Tiandi asked curiously. Bai Cixin's table manners were rather elegant. To be able to eat instant noodles to such an extent, she must be a woman with some skills. Everything has been arranged. 1 week later, we will attack together with the people from the Peace Association. Bai Cixin said as she took out a tissue and wiped her mouth. Qing Tiandi laughed softly. Very good. You two also pay attention to your safety. After you go, come back immediately, don't stay for too long. The husband and wife naturally agreed. They didn't plan to stay for too long in the first place, and now that Qing Tiandi said such words, it could be seen just how terrifying voidless realm was. With the war around the corner, the two began to feel nervous. Of course they also felt guilty. After all, they were sending people to their deaths. That's hundreds of thousands of people, not just a few hundred. This is completely betraying their comrades. Just thinking about it makes one's hair stand up. On the other side, the aunt was currently packing up her son's clothes. Wu Li, how long are you going to be away for this time? The aunt asked her son who was in the living room. Wu Li was currently making a phone call, and when he heard his mother's question, he covered his phone and shouted, "I will be back in a week." After finished speaking, Wu Li continued making phone calls. Seems like after that day, Wu Li had indeed changed a little. However, the aunt knew that her son wanted her to rope in that youngster, and that's why the aunt was trying to please the youngster. Even so, the aunt was still very happy. At the very least, her son was no longer the same as before. After packing up her son's clothes, the aunt took out a bag. "Eat at home before you leave," the aunt said in a low voice, afraid that she would disturb her son's discussion. Wu Li smiled and nodded his head. The aunt was very gratified as she walked into the kitchen to cook for her son. "Mom, where did you put my toothpaste and toothbrush?" Wu Li asked loudly. The aunt who was cooking smiled and said, "In the pocket beside it." "Oh, I saw it." Very soon, 3 dishes and a soup were served to the table by the aunt. Wu Li walked over from the sofa and cried out in surprise, "Wow, these are all my favorite dishes." Hearing that, the aunt felt very happy. She scooped a bowl of rice for her son and said, "Eat more." The aunt sat in front of her son. She didn't eat at all and just watched as her son wolfed down the food. Wu Li went into a daze for a moment, then picked some food for his mother. "Mom, why are you looking at me like that? Eat." Chapter 605. The mother and son enjoyed a different time. The auntie's eyes were filled with love, and the smile on her face was so gentle. After quite a while, Wu Li held onto his stomach. "I'm bloated to death." Silly child, don't overeat. The auntie laughed and scolded. He was already an adult, but he was still acting like a child. Mom, your cooking is too delicious. Wooly wiped his mouth and chuckled. The auntie smiled gently and said, Mom will cook for you every day from now on. You have to come home often. Wooly seemed to be affected as well. For the first time, he didn't object and even nodded. Standing up, Wooly grabbed his luggage and walked to the door. The middle-aged woman followed behind him, reluctant to part. Wooly changed his shoes and opened the door. Ali, be careful. Mom will be waiting for you at home, the auntie shouted worriedly. She felt a heavy feeling in her heart. Wooly turned around and smiled. Mom, I know. The woman nodded and watched her son walk out of the house. Wooly, who was dragging his suitcase, paused for a moment. The middle-aged woman looked at her son, who was standing still, and was also puzzled. Did you forget anything else? Wooly turned his head around and looked towards his mother, and discovered that his mother's sideburns had already turned white, and the wrinkles on her face had also increased. Wooly walked back and hugged his mother. Mom, thank you. If the aunt remembered correctly, this was the first time her son had hugged her like this. Tears instantly flowed from the corners of her eyes. Good boy. After hugging his mother tightly, Wooly walked out of the house without hesitation and closed the door. And just like that, the aunt watched as her son's figure disappeared before her eyes. She first stretched out her hand to grab onto him, but then put down her hand. In Voidless Realm, Donghuang Baiji had already received the news. In just 1 week, several 100,000 people would gather together and attack Voidless Realm. This news still caused the Empress to be dazed for quite a while. They really came. Yihua, are we really going to do this? Donghuang Baiji seemed to be a bit unable to bear to do this. After all, those are the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. Last time, he had only killed a few hundred, but this time, it was not this number. How many families would be destroyed? Yihua didn't have as many concerns as Donghuang Baiji. The enemies had already killed their way to the entrance, so how could he possibly welcome them respectfully? Indeed, they had to welcome him respectfully, and they had to welcome him respectfully with a butcher's knife. Right now, Qingya was much calmer than before. This sort of calmness was the same as Yihua's calmness. It seemed like Qingya didn't have any pity in her heart. Baiji, you are the mistress of Voidless Realm, and there are thousands of people who are depending on you. Could it be that you are planning to surrender? Yihua asked in a low voice. The battle is right around the corner, and to actually say such stupid words. If I were to say this in front of those subordinates of mine, how low would the morale of my subordinates be? Donghuang Baiji hurriedly shook her head. Of course I won't surrender. Yihua said coldly. Seems like the incident back then didn't teach them a lesson at all. Do they really think that just by having more people, they will be able to solve the problem? Dream on. Qingya tacitly agreed with her husband's words. If more people can solve the problem, then what is the point of having strong people? A mouthful of saliva from each of them was enough to drown an expert. Yihua, don't you think that this matter is a conspiracy? In actuality, Donghuang Baiji was also thinking about this problem. If I were to fall into someone else's scheme, I would appear to be very foolish. This time, Qingya agreed with Donghuang Baiji and said lightly, and on that night, there wasn't a single person left alive. Hold up the world. Yihua said faintly. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji went into a slight daze. It's him. Yihua nodded his head, then took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up. It's very likely that it's him. He sure is an opponent with brains. Then, Yihua, why didn't you just kill him? Donghuang Baiji asked curiously. Yihua went into a daze. If I kill him, what am I going to do? It wasn't easy for me to meet a worthy opponent. Of course I can't say such words out loud. If I say it out loud, they will definitely force me to kill him. I couldn't find him, so I asked Brett to retreat. Yihua revealed a helpless look. After hearing that, Donghuang Baiji shook her head and said coquettishly, at such a crucial moment you. Qingya laughed lightly and did not say anything. All right now, everyone is looking at you. Donghuang Baiji's decision. Don't throw my face away. Yihua said gravely, then stood up and walked out of the room. In the past, I have always been worried about Qingya. Now that Qingya is fine, Donghuang Baiji has become indecisive again. Hearing what Yihua said, Donghuang Baiji pouted her mouth. I feel a bit wronged. How would I dare to throw your face away? Qingya picked up the teacup and took a small sip. Baiji, don't you know that we are men? We want our face even if we die. I know, but I don't feel like I have lost my face. You make it sound like I have already lost my face. The Empress felt very wronged. I am even thinking of ways to help you gain face. Qingya walked to Donghuang Baiji's side and patted on Donghuang Baiji's shoulder. Yihua's temper is a bit big sometimes, and his words are also very straightforward. Don't take it to heart. I know, this fellow only knows how to bully us, and he even said that I have lost his face. Donghuang Baiji hugged onto Qingya and said. Alright, Yihua's words have indeed hurt Donghuang Baiji a bit. As a wife, losing her husband's face is a very serious matter, and what Yihua said just now caused Donghuang Baiji to feel very gloomy. Qingya smiled helplessly, then stroked Donghuang Baiji's hair. Alright, I will help you teach him a lesson. You have to teach him a lesson in front of me then. Alright, why have you become like Yen-er? Donghuang Baiji pinched onto Qingya petulantly. As a sister, you have to comfort my broken heart. Alright, on Fu. Then, next time when I am bullied, you have to do the same too. Qingya smiled tenderly. Sure. Fortunately, the two little fellows were not here. Otherwise, when they saw the two mothers like this, their jaws would have dropped to the ground. Did their mothers have such an operation? He had learned something new. The two women comforted each other in the room, and Yihua went to leisure bar. As for what he was going to do, of course, it was to hold another mobilization meeting. He called all of his subordinates over for a meeting. This time, even Air Ha and Floating Battle were present. Regarding the matter regarding Do Fusher, Yihua was the one who agreed to Do Fusher. As long as Do Fusher was able to deal with Absolute Heaven and Brett, Yihua would accept Do Fusher. Although the process was a little fierce, at least it was completed. As an honorable supreme, he couldn't go back on his words, right? I hate deceiving people the most. As for that Yun Lang, he had now become Yi Zizi's little brother. Wouldn't a subordinate's little brother be his own little brother's little brother? There was nothing he could do. This was Do Fusher's first time participating in a meeting, so he was a little reserved. Of course, he was also very shocked. His mind was in a daze the entire time. So it turns out that there is someone above my big brother. There is someone above my big brother's big brother. Oh my God! How is this possible? Furthermore, I feel that I am very weak. I am standing at the very back of the line. Furthermore, there are so many beauties, so many handsome guys. My appearance is gone in an instant. I am so sad, I really want to cry. However, at the same time that he was shocked, Floating Battle was also very excited. So strong. This is a gathering of powerful individuals. Chapter 606. Yun Lang, who was squatting beside Yi Zizi, also had the same feeling. He couldn't even sense the aura of these people. How powerful were they? They were so frightening that this husky wanted to whimper. However, being able to follow these powerful people made Yun Lang feel very good. His silvery white tail kept wagging, making him look more and more like a husky. Subordinate. We pay our respects to his honor. Everyone shouted out in unison. Their imposing manner was extraordinary, as if they were going to go to war. What is called imposing manner? This is called imposing manner. Towards someone like Donghuang Baiji, it would only lower her imposing manner. Yihua raised his hand, and everyone was pulled up by a formless power. Do Fusher, who was standing at the back, was so excited that he started sweating. As expected, I have followed the right person. If I follow his honor, I will be able to eat and drink well, and furthermore, I won't be bullied by anyone. To think that I, Do Fusher, would be able to have such a day. Cool. Yihua first lit up a stick of cigarette, then said gravely, 1 week later, there will be a small-scale battle. That's right. In Yihua's opinion, this kind of battle with several 100,000 people was only a small-scale battle, and the battle with Heaven's Mansion could only be counted as a medium-scale battle. True large-scale battles were still very rare. Subordinate is willing to sweep away all obstacles for your honor. Wei Chang was the first one to shout out loudly and kneel on the ground. Following Wei Chang's shout, everyone shouted out in unison, Subordinates are willing to go through water and tread on fire for his honor. Yi Hua was very satisfied with his subordinate's attitude and said, "The purpose of this meeting is not to discuss about this battle, but rather, it is to discuss about the outcome of the battle." Brett cupped his hands and said, "Your Honor, subordinate believes that any kind of conspiracy is nothing but a paper tiger in your Honor's eyes." Brett's words were pleasing to the main body's ears. Brett is right. I am naturally not afraid of those conspiracies. After receiving his Honor's praise, Brett felt a bit more comfortable in his heart. I wonder if Zhu Tian has woken up yet. Yi Hua paused for a moment, then continued. However, I do not wish to use my strength to suppress the other party. If I were to do so, it would seem like I am bullying the other party. Everyone went into a daze for a moment, and soon after, they shouted out in unison, "Your Honor is benevolent." Floating battle wasn't used to this kind of rhythm. So this was benevolence. It seemed like he had to redefine benevolence. So, after this small-scale battle, no one knows what will happen. This sovereign is looking forward to it. Right after Yi Hua finished speaking, the subordinate shouted out once more, "To be able to relieve his Honor's tiredness, that is a supreme honor." As expected of a group of subordinates who were good at bootlicking. Their words were really crafty. Actually, it wasn't all bootlicking. For the people of the 7 deadly sins, this was a very normal thing. For example, Zishan, Green and Red brothers. They had never come into contact with Zishan in the past, so they mistook Zishan's actions as bootlicking. Although this is only a small-scale battle, it is considered a large-scale battle here. I want to go all out this time to shock the enemy. As soon as they heard that everyone was going to move out, everyone was moved. There was a bloodthirst in their bones. The number of times that his honor requested for the entire army to move out wasn't a lot. The first time was at Ing family, and the second time seemed to be against a deity. This might very well be the third time. However, compared to the second time that his honor requested for the entire army to move out, this time's army is quite a bit inferior. However, at the very least, being able to follow his honor and set out together with him made everyone very excited. Subordinates will obey his honor's command. Everyone shouted out, and their shouts nearly overturned the roof. The reason why I gathered all of you here is to let you all think about how to line up, how to tell that we are an unstoppable team. Even Yi Hua himself didn't know what to do. I don't want to use those pretentious methods that I used in the past anymore. I want to change my pretentious methods. However, this question stumped everyone, because this question was very serious. Since his honor's request was so high, an ordinary plan definitely wouldn't be able to satisfy his honor's request. Furthermore, judging from the pretentious method that his honor used in Heaven's Mansion last time, this time's pretentious method definitely wouldn't be inferior to that time either. Looking at his subordinates remaining silent, Yi Hua asked gravely, "What is it? Do none of you have any good ideas? Do you all have to let me think of ideas every single time? If that is the case, what is the point of having you all?" Everyone turned pale with fright and hurriedly knelt down. Subordinates deserve to die. Subordinates are slow-witted. "Get up after you have thought it through," Yi Hua said coldly. "Other than knowing how to fight, what else do you know? I am just like taking care of a child." Everyone remained silent. His honor's temper is a bit big. How could Yi Hua's temper not be big? Hugging the most beautiful woman in the world every single day, yet being unable to move, this kind of feeling is very sullen. Whoever hugs me will know. None of Yi Hua's subordinates answered, because even if they answered, his honor wouldn't be satisfied. Therefore, remaining silent was the best choice. At most, I will just get scolded by his honor. Furthermore, with so many people scolding me at the same time, it wouldn't be too shameful. Your honor about that. I know. Do Fusher, who was kneeling at the back, suddenly raised his hand and said. Yi Hua signaled Do Fusher to speak. Everyone shook their heads. Young man, you are truly too young. You don't understand his honor at all. Do Fusher was still a bit nervous, and he said while trembling with fear, "His honor is able to pull out a small stool and sit in front of the army. What kind of aura would that be?" When subordinate imagines that scene, I can't help but have the urge to worship his honor. After hearing that, everyone shook their heads. Small stool? Isn't this too degrading? During the last battle of Heaven Court, his honor stepped on Inferno Abyssal Dragon, and this time, his honor is actually able to sit on a small stool. Young man, you really don't understand anything. However, after hearing that, Yihua sunk into deep thought. Small stool? Yihua couldn't help but imagine that kind of scene in his mind. I, the Supreme Overlord, am sitting in front of the army, on the most ordinary small stool, with a cigarette in my mouth, and a pair of eyes coldly staring at the army. Seems like this kind of scene isn't bad. In the past, I was already used to being high profile, so this time, getting a small stool is not bad either. Good. Well said. Yihua couldn't help but shout out. All of Yihua's subordinates had stupefied looks on their faces. They completely don't know what's good about this scene. Hearing his honor's praise, Dou Fusher hurriedly kneeled down and kowtowed to thank his honor. Being able to help his honor solve his problems is our duty as subordinates. All of Yihua's subordinates were furious. To actually let a newcomer steal their limelight. Motherfucker! Yunlang rubbed his paw. In actuality, I wanted to say the same thing just now, just that, I wasn't able to speak like a human, that's all. I was afraid that his honor wouldn't be able to understand me, so I decided to keep my opinion to myself. Sigh, this husky is rather smart. Yihua swept his gaze across all of Yihua's subordinates. Look at this Dou Fusha. It's only his first time attending a meeting, and he already knows so much. All of you still have to work hard and learn from him. All of Yihua's subordinates were a bit envious of Dou Fusher. His honor has never praised anyone like this before, and furthermore, he even said that he wants everyone to learn from him. Right now, Dou Fusher was a bit giddy. These big shots are going to learn from me? I'm so excited. Chapter 607. This subordinate will bear this in mind. All the subordinates shouted respectfully. Yihua nodded his head. Next time, don't disappoint me. Yes. With a stern look on his face, Yihua returned to Voidless Realm first, leaving behind his subordinates. When Dou Fusher saw that his honor had left just like that, he was a little disappointed. He thought that his honor would look for him alone to talk to him. Right when Yihua was fantasizing, he suddenly discovered that there were a lot of gazes that were looking at him, and those were gazes that harbored evil intentions. Lai Gu walked over with a stern face, looked at Dou Fusher and said, "Newcomer, you really don't know the rules." Dou Fusher swallowed his saliva, and when he saw everyone's ferocious gazes, he became terrified. Big brother. I really don't know the rules. Yi Zizi snorted. You don't know the rules, yet you're talking nonsense. Dou Fusher's scalp went numb. He seemed to have figured out what was going on. It seems like I have stolen the limelight, and I even received his honor's praise, causing these big brothers and big sisters to be jealous. This trick is too deep. I want to go back to the village. Big brother. Big sister. Let me explain. Dou Fusher felt that he still had a chance. Zishan snorted. Who is your big sister? Am I that old? Floating world. Dou Fusher could be seen slowly squatting down and saying weakly, Don't hit my face. Lai Gu snorted coldly. Everyone attack. Let the newcomer know what the rules are. Dou Fusher's miserable screams rang out in the hall. As your big brother, I am also teaching you. Endure it a bit more. Death Mage let out a cackling sound. I will properly learn from you. Zishan's small fist also descended. I'll learn from you properly. Tang Wei also gave him a small punch. I also want to learn. Wei Chong also came over and gave a punch. After a long while, Dou Fusher covered his face and said, You guys didn't keep your word, you said that you wouldn't slap my face. Dou Fusher's face was swollen. It was truly tragic. This was the result of a newbie who didn't know any better. Yun Lang wagged his tail and held his breath. Then, he raised his head and walked past arrogantly. You're also a newcomer, so why do you have to be so high profile? Look at me, Yun Lang. I'm acting like a dog with my tail between my legs. In the end, he was still too young. Blood Demon also shook his head and looked at himself. Only by doing things in a down-to-earth manner and behaving honestly would he be able to gain everyone's approval. Randomly showing off would only lead to death. Dou Fusher wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Even a dog had come to mock him. In the future, he wouldn't dare to speak carelessly anymore. The farce ended just like that, allowing Dou Fusher to experience the warmth of a team. Look at how low profile the Green and Red brothers were when they first entered the team. Both of them stood at the side and didn't speak at all, and only answered when his honor asked them about it. And for this Do Fusher to take the initiative to answer his honor's question, it meant that he was flaunting his own brain. This Do Fusher was the target of everyone's attack. We all have no brains. What do you need brains for? Quickly dispel your crazy idea. When Yi Hua returned to Voidless Realm, he might not know that his subordinates were currently bullying the newcomer. Walking into the back of the luxurious palace, Dong Huang Baiji could be seen teaching her daughter how to write calligraphy, and Yi Yan was also practicing by the side. Mom, look, it's a picture of a chick pecking rice. Yi Yan took out his masterpiece and showed it to her. Qingya, who was sitting at the table and drinking tea, immediately spat out the tea she was drinking. She widened her eyebrows and said, Yan, I'll let you practice writing. Why are you drawing? Yi Yan pouted. She was a little sad that her work was not praised by her mother. Not bad. Yi Hua walked into the room and said faintly. Yi Yan immediately beamed and shouted with a smile, Daddy. Yi Hua rubbed onto his son's little head. Children at this age must be praised. If not, it would be very easy for them to be discouraged. When Dong Huang Baiji saw that her husband had returned, she immediately walked away and sat beside Dong Huang Baiji. Mom will bring you two out to play. Qingya naturally knew that. Right now, Qingya brought the two little fellows out and didn't want to disturb them. Hearing that they could finally play, Dong Huang Li and Yi Yan were very happy. After all, they are still children, so why wouldn't they want to play? When Qingya passed by Yi Hua, she said in a low voice, You made Baiji angry, coax her properly. Yi Hua was completely confused. When did I provoke the Empress? I don't have any impression at all. However, when he looked at Dong Huang Baiji, she seemed to be angry. Yi Hua slowly walked to the side of the Empress and wanted to stroke onto the Empress's beautiful hair. Who knew that Dong Huang Baiji would snort, Don't touch me, I'm making you lose face. Right now, Yi Hua finally understood. So it turns out that it was my unintentional words that provoked the Empress. How could you make me lose face? Yi Hua laughed lightly. What's the difference between this Empress and a child? She has the temper of a child. In any case, I have already made you lose face. In the future, you don't have to care about me anymore. The Empress raised her head and had an expression that seemed to say that she wants me to fend for myself. Right now, Yi Hua was quite skilled in coaxing women. He directly carried the angry Empress and sat down on the ground. Afterward, Yi Hua stretched out his hand and hooked onto the Empress's chin, then said faintly, Look at my wife's appearance. Which woman in this world would have such an appearance? Humph! Dong Huang Baiji snorted and dodged away. From her tone and actions, it seemed that she had gotten a little better. Baiji, for a woman like you to go and fight anywhere, it would mean that you are giving me face. Yi Hua once again stretched out his hand and stroked onto the Empress's cherry lips. The Empress's cherry lips were very soft. Dong Huang Baiji's originally angry face immediately collapsed. Then, why did you say that I made you lose face? Dong Huang Baiji used her small fists and pounded onto her chest. Yi Hua said gravely, Baiji, you must be decisive when killing, hesitation isn't like your style. Dong Huang Baiji silently nodded her head. Look at your frowning face. You don't look like an empress at all. Isn't this all because I was angered by you? It's all your fault. All right, blame me. Since her husband had already given in, Dong Huang Baiji was no longer angry and snuggled into her husband's embrace. Yi Hua said lightly, I have already arranged everything for this matter, I will deal with it myself, so that you won't feel bad about it again. I can do it. Yi Hua's gaze became focused as he shouted out lightly. All right then. This time, all of us will move out and let everyone experience what I'm capable of. Who dared to provoke my woman? How did they end up? Hearing her husband's bold words, Dong Huang Baiji felt as if she had eaten honey. I found a good man, this is great, that's why. Yi Hua's change is still very big. In the past, he would often scold people and coax his wife. But now, look at how good he is at coaxing his wife. A few minutes ago, Dong Huang Baiji was still panting with anger, but a few minutes later, tsk. Look at her expression, it seems like she wants to roll on the bed with me, but I won't allow her to do so. If I allow you to scram just because you want to scram, where would my dignity be? Dong Huang Baiji, who was in bliss, said tenderly, Hubby, I love you. Chapter 608. Time passed by, and very quickly, a week passed by. Today was April 28th, the weather was clear, and it was also the day when the Peace Association and Justice Alliance launched their attack. Both sides sent out 150,000 people, and for a total of 300,000 people. Furthermore, they even gave themselves a temporary name, Sky Law. As the name implied, they were here to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Such a scale was unprecedented, and everyone was excited, looking forward to the moment when they trampled on Voidless Realm. Meanwhile, inside Voidless Realm, Yi Hua's underlings all appeared, and even the blood demon who was cleaning the place was present. Of course, Do Fushi was also present. The bruise on his face had yet to disappear, and he stood at the back, not daring to speak anymore. Just now, Yi Hua also asked Do Fushi curiously, what happened to his face? How could Do Fushi dare to answer truthfully, and thus said that he fell down? This caused Yi Hua to laugh lightly. To be able to fall to such a state, Do Fushi is indeed a talent. After Qing Ya and Dong Huang Baiji greeted Yi Hua and his underlings, they didn't say anything. It will be fine if they just stand beside their husband later. Dong Huang Li and Yi Yan were also standing at the side. The two little fellows were also meticulously dressed up by their mother today, so they mustn't lose face. The two little fellows were already impatient to go on stage, and they looked up at their father's broad back view. Yi Yan was even thinking in his heart, I must definitely become a man like my father in the future. Wait for my order. Yi Hua shouted out while holding onto a bamboo stool. Yes. Everyone shouted out gravely. After finished speaking, Yi Hua passed through the barrier with the bamboo stool. Meanwhile, Voidless Realm didn't have any signs of preparing for war, and everyone was still living their lives as usual. Of course, such a big matter still has to be paid attention to. After all, today is the glory that belongs to Voidless Realm. Yi Hua walked out of the barrier and arrived at the desert outside. He placed the bamboo stool on the ground, then sat down, took out a cigarette, and lit it up. Interesting, I have never been so low-key before. It seems like it is quite interesting to be low-key once in a while. Right now, I am just waiting for those people to come over. Meanwhile, at the border of the desert, a large army of 300,000 people had already gathered. The ones leading the army were naturally the two leaders, Bai Cixin and Jiu Yi. In actuality, the two of them knew that those people were here to die, but they still couldn't bear to do so. Ninth Lord, it's getting late, Bai Cixin said in a sweet voice. Jiu Yi nodded his head. This land of yellow sand is currently a forbidden area, and I heard that Voidless Realm is located at the center of the land of yellow sand. We have to cross this land of yellow sand first. Wang Debao laughed and said, no matter how dangerous it is, there are 300,000 people here, and they are all moon-class elites. We are not afraid of anyone. Lord Zhou chuckled but did not say anything. There must be a reason why this land of yellow sand was called a forbidden zone. He looked at the 300,000 people behind him. Their aura was soaring to the heavens, and their killing intent was awe-inspiring. In the front row, there were even people carrying Tian Fa's flag. How imposing! Let's go! Lord Zhou shouted. 300,000 people stepped onto this path of no return, and death was quietly descending upon them. However, in their minds, they were only thinking about the treasures within Voidless Realm. In the group there was a familiar figure. That was Wu Li. This time, he was even a squad leader in charge of 100 people. It was a disguised promotion. Captain Wu, what kind of treasures do you think are inside Voidless Realm? One of the subordinates at the side asked curiously. Wu Li laughed lightly. Don't worry, if there are any benefits, we will naturally share them with us. That's right, after we get our share of the money, I will buy a villa for my parents and a golden retriever so that they can live a good life. A look of longing appeared on the corner of the subordinate's mouth, and it seemed like he was already fantasizing about his triumphant return. In Wu Li's mind, his mother who had white hair on her temples appeared as well. When I go back to Voidless Realm this time, I will properly accompany my parents and think about the stupid things I did in the past. I will properly apologize to my mother. Just as Wu Li was in deep thought, the yellow sand beneath his feet suddenly moved. A lot of people felt that the yellow sand on the ground was moving. Just as everyone was feeling puzzled, there was a loud bang. A huge blood-red scorpion rushed out from the yellow sand, and in an instant, it swallowed dozens of people. The huge impact sent Wu Li flying, and the subordinate who was fantasizing about buying a big house for his parents was already swallowed by the scorpion. The sudden appearance of the scorpion messed up the entire formation. Bai Cixin had also taken the situation into consideration, and she shouted out, "Get ready for battle!" 300,000 people took out their weapons in unison, and in the entire formation, dozens of huge scorpions rushed out. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin frowned. It wasn't that they didn't consider this situation, but the number of scorpions was a bit too much. In just an instant, it was estimated that more than 100 people died. Lord Zhou shouted coldly, "What are you all standing there for? Go!" As the higher-ups entered the battlefield, the situation quickly stabilized, and it was no longer as messy as before. However, the huge scorpions' defense was extraordinarily terrifying, especially their tails, and with a single sweep, dozens of people would die. There was no other way. The formation was too densely packed. Luckily, there were quite a lot of ancient godly items on both sides, and after the death of more than 10,000 people, they finally killed these dozens of huge scorpions. The huge scorpions' bodies were full of treasures, and their hard outer shell could be used as armor, and their incomparably hard scorpion tail could be used as a top-notch spiritual tool. Although more than 10,000 people died, it still couldn't stop the chaos. The dozens of huge scorpions were all stripped clean, and everyone obtained their first harvest, and they seemed very excited. It was indeed the right choice to form a group and come to this desert, even if more than 10,000 people died in the battle just now. Bai Cixin ordered the team to recuperate, increase their vigilance, and continue their journey in 10 minutes. Right now, Wu Li was already injured, and a deep cut was made on his left arm. Fortunately, he had prepared healing medicine, and with the help of magic, he felt much better. However, he, the team leader, no longer had anyone to give orders to. Just now, that huge scorpion appeared at his side, and other than himself, the other 100 people in the team were all killed. This caused Wu Li's heart to sink. I haven't even seen what Voidless Realm looks like, and more than 10,000 people have already died. And this is merely the first wave. A man could be seen handing out a pen and paper, and everyone was stupefied as they held onto the pen and paper. "What are you doing?" Wu Li asked. The man saw that Wu Li's armband was that of a team leader, and thus, he said very respectfully, "Team leader, this is used to write a will." After finished speaking, the man continued handing out the pen and paper. In actuality, this was also what Bai Cixin wanted. Even if they were to die, they should at least send a will to their family. Wu Li's hand that was covered in blood tightly held onto the white paper, and his hand was trembling a bit. Looking at the people around him, the excitement he had just a moment ago was no longer there. The 10,000 people who died didn't even have the time to write a will. Although they obtained some treasures, the price they paid was too tragic. Wu Li took a deep breath. "It's impossible for me to become a deserter." Picking up the pen, Wu Li began writing on the white paper. Chapter 609. Wu Li wrote down all of the words that he wanted to say, his longing and shame towards his mother. "If there is a next life, I will definitely accompany you by your side." 5 minutes later, the man began to collect the corpses again. However, there were a lot of people who expressed their disdain. "How can I possibly die? What a joke." Wu Li passed his will to the man and said gravely, "I'll be counting on you." The man nodded his head gravely. 10 minutes passed by very quickly, and the huge group began moving forward once again. Due to the lesson that they received just now, they spread out a lot and were not as concentrated as before. However, not even tens of minutes later, a whirlpool suddenly appeared and instantly devoured over 1,000 people. A lot of people were sucked into the whirlpool, and miserable screams could be heard. Those who could fly all flew high up into the sky and looked at the messy group below them. Spread out! Spread out! Facing such a whirlpool, there seemed to be nothing they could do. A huge centipede could be seen rushing out from the bottom of the sand. Those densely packed legs made everyone's body shiver, and its long tentacles seemed to be carrying along a strange spiritual energy fluctuation. What the heck? Is this God of Touch? Big brother, what is God of Touch? Have you played Legend of Touch before? You don't even know what God of Touch is. I have never played it before. Boom, boom, boom. Waves of spiritual energy fluctuation could be seen coming out from the surroundings once again. Another 2 huge whirlpools could be seen appearing and immediately devouring countless people's lives. 2 centipedes that brought along a terrifying aura burst out from the ground. Furthermore, tens of giant scorpions also appeared at the same time. Everyone subconsciously swallowed their saliva. This is going to be a tough battle. Bai Cixin and Jiu Yi, who were in the sky, tightly wrinkled their brows. This time, we are bringing people to fight against Voidless Realm. And not to fight against these mutated animals. However, if we don't kill these animals, how are we going to reach Voidless Realm's entrance? These monsters seem to be Voidless Realm's guardians, obstructing our path. Fight! Bai Cixin shouted out, and a terrifying pressure flashed across the ancient godly item in her hand as her delicate body charged towards the ground. Jiu Yi let out a breath, then condensed a hammer in his hand. When the hammer appeared, the entire sky darkened for a moment as lightning struck down. Thick lightning gathered on Jiu Ye's hammer, and Jiu Ye's entire body was like a god of lightning as he shouted out loudly. The hammer immediately released a dazzling light, and the huge lightning seemed to be able to penetrate everything in the world. The lightning struck the centipede's body. One could see with the naked eye that the electricity on the centipede's body was destroying it. In an instant, the centipede lost its life and collapsed. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned for a moment before bursts of cheers erupted. As expected of the president of the Peace Association, he was able to kill a centipede in one hit. The morale of the entire team was greatly boosted by Lord Jiu's attack. They attacked without any regard for their lives. Lord Jiu could only use this move once. It would be great if he could use it infinitely. Everyone joined the chaotic battle. The remaining 2 centipedes were very tenacious. With every strike, hundreds of people would die. There was also the threat of the giant scorpion beside them. The casualties were disastrous. After an hour of hard work, they finally defeated these mutated animals. However, the losses had increased from 10,000 to 100,000. In just an hour, a total of 100,000 people were lying in the yellow sand. Furthermore, they didn't even get to see what Voidless Realm looked like. But now, Bai Cixin, Wang Debao, and Lord Jiu were all wounded. This place was really too scary. They were basically here to die. The problem was, these heads were not given to Voidless Realm. They were given to these mutated animals. Right now, Wu Li was lying on a pile of sand, and blood was flowing out from his mouth non-stop. Because he was a squad leader, there were paramedics beside him. However, right now, both of Wu Li's legs were already gone. The paramedics inspected Wu Li's legs, then shook their heads. There was nothing they could do. Wu Li's injuries were too heavy. Just as the paramedics were preparing to leave and save the others, Wu Li stretched out his hand and grabbed onto one of the paramedics, then said with all of his strength, "Please, tell my mother that I have let her down." Wu Li looked at the paramedics. The paramedics tightly wrinkled his brows and nodded his head heavily. Seeing that the paramedics nodded their head, Wu Li seemed to have lost all of his strength. The hand that was grabbing onto the paramedics fell down as well. Wu Li looked towards the sky, and in the sky, his mother's warm smile could be seen. The corner of Wu Li's mouth slightly rose, and he seemed to have returned back to his mother's embrace. The paramedics let out a breath, then stretched out his hand and wiped Wu Li's eyes. However, countless corpses were already lying all around, and the yellow sand had already become a sea of blood. Extremely terrifying. When Lord Jiu and Bai Cixin saw this scene, their hearts felt very heavy. They came here with a mission. If they didn't complete it. Wang Debao held onto the blood-stained longsword tightly and muttered, 110,000. Gone just like that. Lord Jiu and Bai Cixin became silent. All of this was just to frame Voidless Realm. Looking at the entire yellow sand, skeletons were everywhere, and the sight was too horrible to look at. Bai Cixin thought inwardly, is all of this really worth it? Just to frame Voidless Realm with a groundless crime. The remaining 190,000 people were currently collecting the spoils of war. That giant centipede's entire body was filled with treasures. However, there were still some people who were flipping over the corpses, seemingly looking for their brothers or other people. There were even some people who were hugging onto the corpses and wailing loudly. Bai Cixin looked towards the endless yellow sand. Where exactly is this Voidless Realm? Why can't I see it yet? However, right now, Yihua was still waiting. He was currently smoking cigarette after cigarette, and the ground was filled with cigarette butts. Why is he still not here yet? Is he still coming or not? I have already waited for more than an hour, and not even a single strand of hair can be seen. However, there is a layer of cigarette butts on the ground. I feel a bit awkward. My wives and subordinates are all waiting for me to come out. Sigh, however, for these 190,000 people to walk all the way to where Yihua was. I reckon that they would still need half a day's time. However, if they were to really walk all the way to where Yihua was, how many of them would really be left? Most probably, before they could even see Yihua's face, they would all die in this yellow sand. Lord Jiu and Bai Cixin once again gathered 190,000 people and prepared to set off. However, among them, there were already a lot of people who wanted to go back. However, when they thought about what to do if they were to bump into those things on the way back, they would definitely die. Right now, there was still a trace of hope for them to advance forward, but if they were to retreat, it would only be a path of death. If they were able to make a new choice, it was reckoned that a lot of people wouldn't have come to this yellow sand. Although treasures were important, their lives were more important. As the army continued to advance forward, everyone raised their vigilance and paid attention to their surroundings. If a whirlpool appeared, they would have to immediately leave. There were also those giant scorpions that suddenly appeared, and there were even more unknown life forms. However, in less than 10 minutes, a situation occurred once again. This kind of situation caused everyone to despair. Chapter 6:10. This is simply not giving us a way out. The atmosphere of despair spread throughout the entire team. Looking at the gigantic creatures in front of them, a deep sense of powerlessness emerged within the team. Even Lord Jiu and Bai Cixin felt a sense of despair. This boundless land of yellow sand was actually this terrifying. This is something unexpected. And they want to flatten Voidless Realm? We don't even know where Voidless Realm is. This is simply a joke. What should we do? There are so many of them. Everyone in the team revealed out a frightened expression as they muttered. Run! How are we going to run? We are all surrounded. Some martial artists who were capable of flying were no longer able to endure this kind of fear and began flying towards the sky to escape. Many people saw this situation, and their morale fell to the lowest point. There are actually people who are escaping. There are at least over 10,000 of them. Even the sky was covered by a patch of darkness. However, right at this moment, the ground seemed to be covered by something, and everyone couldn't help but raise their head to look. Dozens of gigantic vultures covered the entire sky, and with a ferocious aura, the vultures flew towards the 10,000 people. Facing against dozens of vultures, the 10,000 people were instantly annihilated, and almost all of them were swallowed alive by the vultures in the sky. Everyone's expression froze. This is simply a team that is capable of both land, sea, and air. Right now, the control of the sky and ground is completely in the hands of the enemy. Bai Cixin and Jiu Yi were in despair. With their strength, it is impossible for them to charge out of the encirclement. The battle prowess of the dozens of vultures is too terrifying. Thankfully, after the vultures ate over 10,000 people in the sky, they left and didn't plan to join the battle. This made everyone let out a breath of relief. Jiu Yi and Bai Cixin took a look at each other, and both of them seemed to be very helpless. Wife, let's fight. Wang Debao shouted out. Bai Cixin nodded her head and shouted out, Everyone, listen up, there is already no way back for us. We can only fight to the end, for peace. For justice. Bai Cixin raised the ancient godly item in her hand high up, and the might that was emitted from the ancient godly item made the remaining 180,000 people reveal a gaze filled with fighting spirit. Ancient godly items are good things, they are able to boost morale. Jiu Yi and Wang Debao who were at the side also raised the ancient godly item in their hands, and a majestic spiritual pressure swept across the ground, causing all of the mutated animals in the surroundings to tremble. Kill! Lord Jiu shouted and took the lead to rush out. Wang Debao and Bai Cixin shouted coldly and rushed down without any hesitation. In this situation, they couldn't care less. They would bring as many as they could back with them. The battle was on the verge of breaking out, and the rate of casualties was dropping by the second. It was chilling. Meanwhile, outside of Voidless Realm's barrier, Yihua had a stern look on his face, and there was already a pile of cigarette butts beneath his feet. This group of people couldn't have gotten lost, right? If you can't even find the entrance of Voidless Realm, then what are you two even coming here for? The people who were standing inside the barrier were curious. It has already been a few hours. Even if His Honor were to walk, His Honor should have already arrived, right? Although I am unable to see His Honor's expression, judging from those cigarette butts, His Honor's expression should be very bad. Sister, are those bad guys not coming? Yi Yan tugged at the corner of his sister's clothes. Dong Huangli held onto her little brother's hand. We should be arriving soon, right? Could it be that they're asleep? Yi Yan gasped and pursed his lips. He was originally very excited, but after waiting for so long, he still did not appear. He even wanted to sleep. Dong Huangli rubbed onto her little brother's head. I don't understand either. All of Yi Hua's subordinates were also a bit gloomy. Just what is going on with this group of people? It can't be that they are preparing to stand His Honor up, right? If that's the case, your guts are rather big. How is this standing up? Those people are currently fighting for their lives. Right now, the battlefield was already too horrible to look at. The number of people that were killed had directly dropped to 100,000. It had only been a few hours, and yet, 200,000 people had already disappeared. This was a heavy blow that caused everyone to be unable to breathe. Furthermore, right now, the battle had yet to stop, and the number of people that were killed was still continuously rising. These mutated beasts are truly terrifying. Another hour passed by, and the scene was already unbearable to look at. Out of the originally majestic army, only a measly 30,000 people remained. All of the others had died in battle. What kind of concept was this? 270,000 people were to be left behind in this land of yellow sand forever. The remaining 30,000 people stood blankly on the spot, and there weren't even a few that went to collect the spoils of war, because they didn't even know if they would be able to return or not. Jiao Yi, Bai Cixin, and Wang Debao were already heavily injured, and they were currently gasping for breath. If there was no rescue, right now, even they probably wouldn't be able to escape. Jiao Yi sat paralyzed on a pile of bloody sand, gasping for breath with a heavy gaze. Wang Debao was currently bandaging his wife's wounds. Looking at the wounds on her delicate skin, he felt a pang in his heart. Bai Cixin also bandaged her husband's wounds, and she said in a low voice, Debao, maybe I should have listened to you before and not participated in this conflict. Wang Debao was stunned for a moment, then he immediately smiled and said, Honey, listen to what you said. Whatever you do, I will support you. Debao, thank you. All these years, you've taken a lot of blame for me. As your wife, I'm really not responsible. Wang Debao gently hugged his wife. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. We won't die. Debao, if we can survive, let's have children, Bai Cixin said softly as she nestled in her husband's arms. After going through so many things, she finally realized that it was a blessing to be able to talk peacefully. Wang Debao was overjoyed. After being married for so many years, Bai Cixin had never wanted children, because the birth of a child would disrupt her rhythm of becoming stronger. However, after hearing his wife's words, he was instantly excited. Okay, when this is over, we'll go home and have children. People would sigh with emotion, especially when their lives were in danger. Some things would be too late for regrets. However, if they survived a disaster, they might be able to comprehend it, but they might also be the same as before. What he said now was just some yearning. Let's return. Jiao Yi, who was at the side, said gravely. The remaining 30,000 people were basically unable to do anything, let alone trample on Voidless Realm. All of them were trampled by those mutated animals. Bai Cixin and Wang Debao did not object. It was meaningless for them to continue advancing now. They would only be wiped out. Lord Jiao stood up and shouted, Retreat! The 30,000 people were taken aback for a moment before they let out an excited roar. It was as if they had won a battle and could finally retreat. They would never come back again. They would never come back to this godforsaken place even if they were beaten to death. The 30,000 people once again harvested the corpses of the mutated animals. They were excited at the thought that they could all be sold for money when they returned. Damn it, I can't even fit it in anymore. However, just as everyone was retreating, there was a sudden movement in the sky. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.